In a lecture hall, Li Yunxiao, our protagonist, is awakened by his teacher, confused as he recalls in his memories that the current year was the 1033rd year of the Tianwu calendar. He remembers that he had died 15 years ago on a mountain. Distracted and looking out the window, he sees a statue of himself. While being reprimanded by the teacher, he realizes that he has reincarnated. The teacher then asks him how many refinement methods exist for Xian weapons. Our MC was somewhat distracted and, instead of answering the question, noticed the appearance of this goddess. Realizing how easy and ridiculous the question was, the MC responds, 48 methods, causing the entire class to laugh and mock him. Only the teacher was surprised. The classmates mockingly call him the young master of crap from the Li family, and say he should have at least read the books, which state that there are only 6 methods. The MC then calls the book's author a brat, and wonders why he had forgotten the other 12 methods. Once again, the entire class laughs at him, saying he was spouting nonsense for getting the question wrong. However, the teacher orders everyone to shut up and says that the author of the book, whom the MC called a brat, had indeed created 12 additional methods, but they were beyond common understanding, which is why no one knew about them. Surprised, the teacher begins to think that the MC, who was mediocre in martial arts, might have talent for alchemy. She then asks more questions, and he answers them all correctly, including one that even the teacher had trouble solving. She then tells him that he no longer needs to attend her classes and that he can take time for self-study, rushing out of the room to inform someone about what had happened. Taking advantage of the situation, the MC also leaves the room, leaving the students gossiping about him, commenting that he might be a genius in alchemy. The MC walks through the city, which was built by his disciple, and comments on how devoted his disciple was to have made a statue of him as a tribute. He heads to the alchemy tower. His current body has a weak constitution and has not yet opened the meridians, which is why he is considered trash. But that wouldn't be a problem for someone who was considered the 3rd strongest martial sovereign in his past life. He enters the tower to look for Yangdi, his disciple, seeking a way to fix his weak body. With the experience of 2 lives, he would certainly be able to reach even greater heights than in his past life. Unfortunately, the tower's receptionist tells him that Yangdi has not been the president of the tower for 20 years. The MC is frustrated. He, who is basically a god both in alchemy and martial arts, is now trapped in the weak body of a talentless boy. I wouldn't complain so much. The guy is getting another life and is still whining. The MC hands a list of herbs and materials to the receptionist, intending to use them to open his meridians. At that moment, a newly graduated alchemist arrives and orders the girl to fetch an elder. He grabs the MC's list, calls it trash, crumples it, and throws it away, saying the tower wasn't a place for children to play. Understand this. In his past life, any scribble about alchemy by the MC was treated as a treasure, and now, a mere rank 1 alchemist had just crumpled up his recipe and thrown it away. The MC is furious and starts saying that this alchemist must have used an extreme method to pass the exam, which caused severe damage to his hands and meridians. He precisely describes the effects, step by step, making the alchemist panic, especially when the MC mentions that to stay alive, he would need to cripple his cultivation and cut off his hands. The MC also mentions that there is a way to save the alchemist, but since he was expelled, he turns and starts to leave. The alchemist, in panic, runs after him and bows, begging for his help. The MC then asks for the recipe that the alchemist had crumpled earlier, blows his nose on it, throws it on the ground, and says, "Get me 10 batches of this list and find me at the academy." He finishes by saying, "Respect isn't given. You can beg for it or earn it." The MC tells the lackey that his right hand will last only 3 days, leaving the man desperate, as many of the items on the list he had never seen in his life. The MC then mentions a recipe for a remedy that can relieve the pain and make his hand last a few more days, and then leaves the tower, leaving the lackey humiliated. The lackey, resentful, swears that after healing his hand, he will tear the MC to pieces. Meanwhile, inside the tower, in Lord Liang's office, the receptionist reports about the list the boy had given her. The complexity of the ingredients surprises the Lord, who tells the girl that the next time she sees this boy in the tower, she should hold him and call him immediately. The receptionist is confused, as the complexity of the boy's recipe had left even a rank 2 alchemist perplexed. Who could this boy be? She wonders. On the street, the MC reflects that he shouldn't bet all his chips on the tower lackey, but upon searching his spatial ring, he realizes that the only good thing he really has is a sword. He also finds a rather interesting magazine. While heading back to the academy, thinking that once he got stronger, he would forge a sword for himself, he is approached by 2 lackeys who say he had been drawing too much attention that day and that some boss Lan had sent them to teach him a lesson. At that moment, his two friends appear to help. One of them blocks the attack of one of the lackeys, who had 4 meridians open, but the other lackey attacks, saying that his colleague was too cocky with only 4 meridians open, and ends up breaking the chubby guy's arm. Shortly after, a friend of the MC arrives, Kim Rishue, known as the Princess of Tianshui, surprising even the protagonist. It seems the trash owner of this body wasn't so unknown after all. Upon seeing the princess, the lackeys say that, since she asked, they will let it slide and start to leave. But our protagonist could not be considered the best if he let someone mess with his friends and walk away unscathed. So, he strikes a boss-like pose and tells the lackeys they can't leave without first understanding the difference between a common person and someone with 5 meridians, like them. At that moment, one of the lackeys charges at the MC, thinking he would finish him in one blow, but ends up taking a kick right between the legs. My friend, that hurt even me. When the lackey's friend judges the MC for delivering such a low blow, the MC simply replies that he just put his leg forward, and the stupid lackey ran into it. He did nothing wrong, but the lackey's friend, furious, says it doesn't matter what the excuse is, he will make the MC taste his own medicine and end his manhood right there. However, the guy was really stupid. Seeing the MC holding a sword, he still tries to punch it, and the MC simply uses the sword to block the attack. The lackey, of course, hurts himself badly, and, as if that wasn't enough, his partner also gets his balls crushed by the MC, leaving the 2 lackeys completely defeated. At that moment, all the men in the room, including me, the narrator, felt an intense pain between our legs. The MC then says that if he couldn't handle 2 trashy delinquents like them, he would bang his head against the wall until death. He bids farewell to his friends, leaving them confused, and upon arriving in his room, he comments that his body is very weak and that he needs to strengthen it somehow. He decides to use the tyrant body technique, a technique used by one of the 10 sovereigns, a title given to the representatives at the peak of martial society. The strongest among them, who received the title of Martial Tyrant Sovereign, acquired this technique by a stroke of luck along with our MC. Unfortunately, in his past life, he died before he could begin cultivating it. Now, he intends to use this second chance to finally practice it. However, saying it and doing it are entirely different things. The MC feels this firsthand and is shocked by how painful it was to practice this technique. Fair enough. After all, it's a technique that belongs to the strongest sovereign. But for him, who was once considered the 3rd sovereign, with talent, courage, and determination, this was nothing but a barrier. Even with the pain and coughing up blood, he continues to train without stopping. The next day at the academy, now that he has a foundation with the tyrant body, he decides to train using the gravity chamber. This way, he would increase the intensity of the training and accelerate his progress. As he walks through the place, he feels nostalgic seeing several other young people practicing and remembers decades ago when he went down the same path to reach the top. Perhaps he had forgotten that he had reincarnated and would have to go through everything again to get nostalgic like this. Considering the current state of his weak body, the MC chooses the gravity chamber with only 10 times the gravity. Upon entering, he's incredulous at the absurd pressure that the 10x gravity chamber puts on his body. He notices that all the rooms are occupied, so he uses his divine sense to find one that would soon be vacant. When the occupant of room 13 leaves, everyone is irritated, as they had been waiting there for a long time, while the MC had just arrived and was already going to enter a vacant room. Little did they know that he used his protagonist hacker. When the MC was about to enter, an apprentice tries to use his title as a martial apprentice with 7 open meridians to take the room, but the MC simply says he doesn't care about that and tells the guy to move aside. The apprentice insists, saying that if the MC lets him use the room, he could use his name if he ever found himself in trouble at the academy. Once again, the MC tells the guy to step aside. After this humiliation, the lackey decides to teach the MC some rules that newcomers should follow and prepares to attack. When he releases his power, the bystanders begin to comment, as always, about how amazing he was. Blah blah blah. The guy then says that, since he was in a good mood, he wouldn't kill the MC, only break all the bones in his body. But the MC replies that his technique, the Tiger Fist, required precise timing for the attack to be fatal, and he walks away, treating the lackey as insignificant. Obviously, this only makes the guy angrier, who attacks, saying he would kill the MC for being so arrogant. Then, our protagonist assumes a combat stance, and the pressure he emits puts the lackey in ecstasy. It was almost as if he were a sheep walking straight to the slaughter, the lackey's own words. At the moment of impact, the MC grabs his wrist and strikes his shoulder. The MC feels disappointed when he sees that his attack, instead of knocking the guy out, only broke his arm. The onlookers begin to spout the same nonsense as always, making the guy even more furious. At that moment, Luo Landuo appears. She tells the lackey he can leave the room since it was occupied, side, then congratulates the MC but states that with only these ridiculous tricks, he won't go far and, at this rate, would never win. Apparently, the two had a history together. The former owner of the body liked her, but he was rejected because he was useless at cultivation, as his body couldn't open the meridians, not even with the help of alchemists. Everyone then remembers him, the trash young master of the Li family, and they start gossiping. While they all humiliate him, the MC simply tells the girl that she's right, but that the current fight isn't with her. He then stares at the lackey, who is shocked, and says that since he was done, he was going to train, entering the room and leaving the two behind, dumbfounded. The girl adds that if the lackey had mastered his technique to its full extent, the MC wouldn't have broken it so easily, causing everyone around to laugh at the lackey once again. Inside the room, the MC delivers a monologue about how difficult the life of a cultivator is, completing it by saying that if he manages to unlock his meridians and condense his chi, it would take about 10 days to return to the pinnacle of the new heavens realm. Then, he begins his training. Inside the gravity room, the MC was suffering. He had already pushed himself hard training at home, and now, in that 10x gravity chamber, he was suffering even more. Even coughing up blood, he gets excited about the training and says that in 3 days, he will have the same physique as a martial apprentice, which would increase his chances of opening his meridians by 60%. While the MC was destroying himself training in the gravity room, the rumor that he had defeated the lackey spread, shocking everyone. A common boy had defeated a martial apprentice with 7 open meridians. With the rumors spreading, the 3 days flew by. The MC left the room completely battered, and more rumors started, some about the fight with the lackey, others wondering why he trained to the point of near death, and still others speculating that he did it to win over the girl from before. While everyone gossiped, a lackey let out a desperate scream. When everyone looked at the room where the MC had been training, they saw all the dummies, which had never been broken in over 100 years, destroyed on the floor. They wondered if that boy was even human. Back in his room, the MC was amazed at the grandeur of the tyrant body technique, realizing that all his injuries had already healed. The MC is then surprised by his friend and accidentally dislocates his friend's arm. The friend comments that the teacher had been desperately looking for him for the past few days. He also mentions that the boss of the two lackeys hadn't remained silent, as he had entered isolated cultivation to advance to the origin realm, and when he returned, he would certainly come after the MC. What worries the friend most, however, is that the MC simply tells him not to worry. After all, it was just the origin realm. He then adds that there's something more important right now. At that moment, he looks at his friend with a serious expression and says he needs to borrow a lot of money. And here I was thinking it was something really serious. The friend lends him the money, but as he was preparing to leave, an explosion destroys the door and throws him across the room. It was the lackey, the same one the MC's friend had just mentioned. He destroyed the door and his friend with a kick, leaving the other friend lying beaten on the floor. The lackey then calls the MC a damn piece of trash and says he challenges him to dare touch his men again. After that beautiful declaration of love from the lackey, his two followers became emotional and urged their boss to finish off the MC, who had beaten them up. The MC then stared at the lackeys and commented that their boss was only at the first stage of the origin realm, yet they were causing such a fuss. The lackey, full of audacity, pointed at the MC and asked if he would kneel and beg for forgiveness or if he would need to break his arms and legs. This irritated the MC, who responded by saying it had been a long time since he heard such an arrogant threat and that the lackey had a really friendly face. The pressure the MC exerted on the lackey with those words was so intense that, consumed by fear, the lackey attacked desperately, believing that if he hesitated, he wouldn't have the courage to face this monster in front of him. In the lackey's mind, the image of the MC appeared like a giant wave, while he himself seemed like a small, insignificant speck. Seeing the impulsive attack, the MC even made fun of the situation, making the lackey even more furious. But it was all in vain, as the MC easily defended against the attack, leaving everyone incredulous, especially since he hadn't opened a single meridian yet. The MC began laughing, saying it had been a long time since he had used all his strength and that the lackey's attack was, in a way, satisfying. He then provoked him further by telling the lackey to keep going, as now was the time for some lessons, shocking everyone around. After the provocation, the lackey used his cloud flow technique and asked how the MC would defend against the strike with the power of an origin realm martial warrior, while the lackey's followers reacted enthusiastically, like they were blooming flowers. These guys are quite suspicious. The MC explained exactly how the lackey's technique worked, and even pointed out all the mistakes he was making, irritating the lackeys even more. The MC concluded by saying that the lackey was lucky to be learning something from him. With a simple move, the MC disarmed the lackey, who was now trembling with fear. The guy, who hadn't even opened a single meridian, was practically already knocked out. The MC then finished the fight with a kick to the lackey's face, sending him flying. Next, the MC rested his sword between the lackey's legs and mockingly said that the lackey's attack had been so strong that he was no longer able to hold onto his sword, and that it might fall at any moment and cut off his manhood. The MC added that he had been too lazy to settle things with that lunatic, but the unfortunate guy not only came after him, but also hurt his friends and threatened the MC's life. He then asked, with all those offenses, whether the lackey really deserved to walk away without a scratch. The terrified lackey began to beg for the safety of his little friend, while everyone around held on to their own parts, imagining the worst. The MC stated that if the lackey wanted to keep his body intact, he would have to pay, and he also pointed to the other lackeys who had come with him, forcing them all to hand over their treasures to the MC. The MC also took the lackey's jade pendant, which was a family heirloom from the Lan family. The MC said that if he didn't want to hand over the jade, that was fine, but he would harm all the lackeys who had accompanied him. Lan Fei, not wanting to lose his followers, said that his men's lives were worth more than any treasure and handed over the jade. Seeing this, the MC pretended to attack the lackey to expose him, and, as expected, Lan Fei used the girl who was with him as a shield. This caused the other lackeys to look at him with contempt. The MC then said he was just joking and told them all to leave. That jade, by the way, was a 5-colored divine stone, which would help the MC when he opened his meridians. After confirming this, the MC looked off into the distance and said that the show was over. He then ordered the alchemist, who had been hiding and watching everything, to come out. This left the alchemist in shock. How could a boy with sealed meridians defeat Lan Fei and still notice where he was hiding? His plans to sneak in and steal the antidote formula were destroyed. The MC asked if the alchemist had managed to gather all the ingredients he had requested. The lackey, now uncertain if he could defeat the MC after seeing how easily he defeated Lan Fei, handed over what he had and said he only managed to gather 6 batches. The MC then asks the alchemist to tend to his fallen friends, leaving the alchemist furious, but he obeys nonetheless. The alchemist, irritated, demands that the MC hand over the recipe, saying that he had already done enough and would no longer take orders from the boy. Calmly, our MC responds that soon, the alchemist would be more than happy simply to serve him. The alchemist, thinking the MC was lying to him, begins to shout. However, the MC interrupts him, stating that he would never waste his time lying to a mere level 1 alchemist. He hands over the recipe, and as the alchemist is leaving, the MC warns him that the recipe would heal his entire body, but the illness had left lasting effects. These after effects would make the alchemist have to work 100 times harder in his cultivation, along with a significant reduction in the soul power he once had, causing him to regress to the level of an apprentice. The MC adds that, with luck, the alchemist might be able to return to level 1 in about 50 years. The alchemist, confused, asks why the MC was telling him this. The MC replies that he has a method that could help the alchemist recover to level 1 in just 15 days, which makes the alchemist doubt his words. Once again, the MC says he wouldn't waste time deceiving someone so insignificant. The MC then makes a proposal. If the alchemist becomes his servant, he will help him recover his level. The alchemist, unable to accept his own insignificance, starts yelling again. The MC adds that the alchemist would only need to serve him for 15 days, after which he could disappear from his sight, leaving the alchemist very confused. He wonders how a boy could diagnose an illness with just a glance and even offer a cure. Using a mental technique, the MC causes the alchemist to see hallucinations and enter a state of shock. The MC then says that the alchemist has the time of 3 breaths to make his decision. Still confused, the alchemist ends up accepting. The MC then states that the alchemist will soon realize that this was the best decision of his life. He hands over a paper with a cultivation method, and when the alchemist sees it, he is completely terrified. It was a soul cultivation art, something only described in legends. The MC says that if the alchemist doesn't return to level 1 within 5 days using that technique, he shouldn't show his face again, as he wouldn't even be worthy of being his servant. The MC concludes by telling the alchemist that from now on, he should address him as young master. While returning to the alchemy tower, the alchemist finds himself thinking about how lucky he had been. After all, Such a technique was only mentioned in legends, and the boy had given it to him as if it were nothing. The alchemist ends up thinking that even if he had to become a slave from now on, he would follow the young master, and wonders who he really was. Inside his room, the MC was cultivating. In this second chance, he was using the power of his soul more than anything else, thanks to the technique he had found in his past life. He had managed to increase the level of his soul and thought that perhaps the reason for his reincarnation was this technique, as when he woke up in this body, the inscriptions of the technique were pulsing in his mind. He reflects that in this world, there are three types of cultivators, those of the soul, the physical, and the alchemists. Each one focuses on a specific area to strengthen, but the MC remembers that in his past life he couldn't ascend because he hadn't cultivated his physical body. This time, he wouldn't make the same mistake and would cultivate completely, focusing on all three areas. Only when the body, mind, and spirit are at their peak will cultivators have the chance to advance to the legendary realm of the 10 worlds. And this was the path he would follow in this new opportunity. Using the jade and the ingredients he had obtained, the MC begins refining pills and needles to finally unlock his meridians. Utilizing a special technique, he fuses the needles with the marrow cleansing pill and applies them to himself to open his meridians. By the end, he managed to open 5 meridians but still found it insufficient, saying that he needed to find a way to get more jades from the Lan family to unlock even more meridians. As soon as the process ended, his friends woke up, and upon seeing the green color on the MC's body, they thought he had been poisoned by the lackeys. However, the MC explains that it was just the effect of the needles and the marrow cleansing. He also tells them that he had beaten up all the lackeys and even took their money, leaving his friends incredulous. Although happy for him, they were worried, knowing that the Lan family wouldn't take this lightly. However, hiring someone from outside to come into the academy would be impossible, since the director was one of the few martial kings in the city. The lackeys, who couldn't last 5 minutes in a fight against the MC with 5 open meridians, were unlikely to do anything. Imagine what would happen to them in the future when the MC's strength would only increase. During the conversation, they remember that the 3rd place on the academy's strongest list was Lan Xuan, half-brother of Lan Fei. He was a martial master who would graduate that year. While the MC's friends were terrified by this information, the MC thought that the list meant nothing. His friends still commented that, since the year was almost over, they might be able to avoid a confrontation with Lan Xuan, but the MC reassures them, saying they didn't need to worry because he himself would go after the guy, leaving the two completely stunned. On the other hand, he could hardly wait to get his hands on another 5-colored jade. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Lan Fei was getting scolded by his uncle, who is a professor at the academy. His uncle comments that Lan Fei was lucky that his half-brother Lan Xuan was in isolated cultivation and hadn't heard about this story. The two would likely compete for a high position in the Lan family. This would be a huge disadvantage for the lackey. His uncle calls him trash and says he would handle everything himself, as the academy's annual evaluation was approaching, and he would occupy the position of chief examiner. He planned to eliminate the MC, believing that he still hadn't opened any meridians. The uncle concludes by saying that after the MC's expulsion from the academy, they would recover the Lan family's jade. Like any good lackey who can't wait to be humiliated, Lan Fei suggests that since the exam was only a few days away, he should at least get revenge for the humiliation the MC had put him through. He proposes a plan to his uncle, who, upon hearing it, laughs like a psychopath and says that maybe his nephew wasn't as much of a loser as he thought. In the MC's courtyard, while he was cultivating, he sensed the presence of some people sneaking in. Using his divine sense, he opened the door and found a love letter from Luo Landuo. The MC then steps out of his room all dressed up, and the two crazies hiding think that he had fallen for their pathetic plan. They break into the MC's room while he watches from afar, curious about what the lackey's great plan might be. After the lackeys leave, the MC realizes they were trying to incriminate him by planting stolen underwear from the academy girls in his room. He gets excited about playing this game with them. The note said he should meet the girl in the garden, an area reserved for couples who wanted to be alone. Playing the fool, the MC heads to the location. When he arrives, the protagonist sees a blonde girl running and asking for help. He points his sword and makes the girl stand in front of him without saying a word, and when she begs, he tells her not to move or she will die. The crazy man catches up to the girl and thanks the protagonist for the gift and says he's going to start the tasting. The guy stops stops and tells the protagonist to leave now. The girl doesn't cry with real tears, and yet he just watches. The girl drops the soft stick and runs to save herself. However, the protagonist stops the girl and tells her that she doesn't need to run. He won't save the girl because these people are the ones who will do that. At that moment, several people appear, including the Academy's dean, who is completely shocked by the scene. The lackey realizes that his plan is falling apart but doesn't have time to react as the dean punches him in the jaw, knocking him down like a sack of potatoes. The lackey is then beaten by the students who came along. While the lackey is getting pummeled, the MC takes the opportunity to tease the blonde, who blushes, realizing that the MC had known about the whole plan from the beginning. Seeing that the first part of the plan had failed, Lan Fei, who was watching from afar, prepares to initiate the second part of his scheme. Meanwhile, the dean is already taking the beaten lackey to the office. The MC carries the blonde in his arms like a princess when Lan Fei arrives with a crowd of girls, narrating his invented story about a perverted thief in the academy. Everyone agrees that the culprit should be caught and judged. With an innocent expression, the MC plays along, asking with a goofy face what the theft of underwear had to do with Lan Fei, causing all the girls to start doubting him. A lackey, part of the scheme, claims they had been chasing the thief to that very spot and accuses the MC of trying to change the subject, acting very suspiciously, and suggests searching the MC's room as a precaution. The princess, who was also one of the victims and a friend of the MC, says she didn't believe it could be him and pressures one of the lackeys, asking if he was sure he saw the thief. This makes the lackey panic because the crime of lying to royalty was punishable by the execution of his entire family. Still, after looking at Lan Fei, he takes the risk and confirms, adding that the thief looked very much like Li Yunxiao, our protagonist. The MC then says that, to prove his innocence, the dean could search his entire room, but adds that if he were innocent, the lackey would need to provide a good explanation for making a baseless accusation. After all, the MC was honest and would never do something so immoral, which makes all the girls believe in his innocence, except for the blonde, who had already been fondled by him. When they all arrive in front of the MC's room, Lan Fei's uncle, who is also a teacher, is already waiting for them, which seemed very suspicious. The dean and the MC ask why he was there since they were told the thief had fled to the garden. To avoid suspicion, the teacher claims that he was only trying to catch the thief as quickly as possible, and that once caught, the culprit should be expelled immediately. The dean, finding this strange, says they should first open an investigation to ensure that everything wasn't staged. The MC, laughing, comments that since the professor was already there, he was sure everything would be fair once the real culprit was caught, and tells everyone to go ahead and search as much as they wanted. Seeing that only Lan Fei's friends were willing to search, the dean warns that if anyone was caught planting false evidence, they would be expelled. The princess also decides to help search, worried about her friend. In the end, the teacher suggests that it would be better if everyone joined in to avoid any problems. When they find nothing, the teacher quickly declares that the MC is innocent. Realizing that the MC had discovered their plans, he begins to leave, saying that everything had already been resolved. But the MC interrupts him, reminding him that he himself said he wanted to catch the thief quickly, but as soon as he discovered the MC's innocence, he gave up. The teacher tries to justify himself, saying that the academy was too big and that it would take a long time to search, possibly the entire night. The MC, however, reminds him that the lackey had said he saw the thief and suggests that perhaps Lan Fei, his boss, was behind everything. Lan Fei, in his defense, accuses the MC of lying. The MC declares his innocence and suggests that now it was time to prove Lan Fei's innocence, asking to search his room. The lackey, not realizing the MC's plan, accepts the suggestion, but the blonde, being more clever, realizes the MC had turned the tables and tries to flee. However, the lackey, unaware of the trap, leads everyone to his room. Upon arrival, he even taunts everyone, saying they could search all they wanted but to be careful as his things were very expensive. As if they already knew what to look for, the MC's friends enter Lan Fei's room and soon come out with a chest in hand. Lan Fei claims that it was his personal chest, of which only he had the key. Full of confidence, Lan Fei opens the chest to prove his innocence, but to his surprise and despair, all the girls' underwear was inside the chest. He starts shouting, claiming it was a setup, but the MC reminds him that Lan Fei himself had said out loud that only he had the key. The girls, outraged, begin demanding Lan Fei's expulsion, and one of the MC's friends even jokes that there was a used bar of soap among the clothes. The chubby friend then comments, with a mischievous grin, that there was a rumor going around the academy that Lan Fei liked to drop the soap during his bath and make his subordinates pick it up for him. After putting the lackey in his place, the MC was cultivating as usual when his friend came running, all excited, to tell him that Lan Fei had been expelled. However, The friend also brought the news that Lan Fei's uncle, the suspicious teacher, would be the next examiner and would probably try to fail the MC. The MC, with his typical mockery, responds that if the uncle tried anything, he would be expelled like a useless fool, just like his nephew. The comment sends the chubby friend into fits of laughter. Changing the subject, the MC asks if the friend had any news about Lan Xian, Lan Fei's half-brother. The chubby friend, now frantic, starts shouting that now that the MC mentioned it, he remembered that Lan Xian had promised to avenge his half-brother. Obviously, this makes the MC extremely happy, as another 5-colored jade was about to be handed to him on a silver platter, helping him grow even stronger. At the Alchemists Association, with the tip the MC gave in the first chapter, the red-haired teacher finally manages to forge the weapon she had failed to make so many times, completing her test. As the Master Alchemists congratulate her, they ask how she had solved the previous problems to forge the weapon. She remembers the tips the MC had given her during class but omits the fact that he helped her. The old Master Alchemists are euphoric, thinking that she had discovered the solutions on her own, and they comment that the city now has another great alchemist. They begin planning celebrations, as they always did when an alchemist leveled up or passed an exam. However, the red-haired teacher, burdened with guilt, remembers that the credit wasn't hers but due to the MC's genius, and she says she doesn't want the party, preferring to remain anonymous. The elders insist, however, stating that her achievement was something grand, something that hadn't been accomplished in the last 100 years, second only to Yang, the MC's disciple in his past life. As they were discussing the redhead's success, a lackey changes the subject, accusing Jerome, the alchemist who is now the MC's servant, of having poisoned himself to cheat on the exam and pass. The accusation leaves everyone in disbelief, as such a claim couldn't be taken lightly. The lackey then goes into detail about what he knows, and the master alchemists say that such an accusation is unacceptable, even though they don't like Jiarong. Making an accusation without proof was a very serious matter. The lackey, however, claims he has evidence, and even if he didn't, the side effects of the poisoning should already be visible. Faced with this, the Tower Master orders them to call Jiarong immediately, regardless of what he was doing. When Jiarong arrives, he congratulates and praises the red-haired teacher for passing the test, acting as if nothing was wrong, and asks Master Chu why he was called, as he had been refining in seclusion. At this moment, the lackey immediately starts saying that he could stop pretending because everyone knew he was poisoned to cheat. The Tower Master presents the evidence and says Jiarong is being accused of cheating, asking for an explanation. Jiarong is shocked that he hadn't realized someone was watching him, but deep down, he feels relieved since the MC had cured him and gifted him a soul cultivation technique. Otherwise, he would be in trouble, as lying to the Alchemist Association was a serious crime. Putting on a big show, Jiarong curses the accuser and demands an explanation, showing his hands without any signs of poisoning, leaving everyone surprised, especially the accuser. The accuser asks how Jiarong managed to cure himself of Yin Wind Stone poisoning. The lackey uses his divine sense and asserts that, even if Jiarong had miraculously been cured, his soul power should be much weaker than that of a first-grade alchemist. But Jiarong, now empowered by the MC's technique, releases all his soul power and asks if the lackey really thought he was worthy of making such an accusation. The pressure causes the lackey to bleed and shrink back, withering like a dried-out fruit. All the master alchemists present lament the accuser's foolishness for acting so rashly, while Jiarong laughs and praises the MC for having given him such an incredible technique, which made him capable of defeating an alchemist like it was nothing in just 5 days. He thinks that, for a technique like this, he wouldn't mind following the MC for 15 years instead of the promised 15 days. After getting rid of the lackey, Master Shu congratulates Jiarong on his progress and dismisses him. He walks alongside the red-haired teacher, who, while walking, suggests that he accept one of her students as a disciple. Of course, she was talking about the MC, unaware of his true identity. Jiarong says he first needs to find the boy and test him before accepting the request. The teacher thanks him and thinks about the potential the MC could reach if he becomes Jiarong's student. Little does she know she's in for a good surprise. 3 days later, the academy's annual exam takes place. Failing the exam resulted in immediate expulsion, regardless of family status. While the MC admired his statue made by Yang Di, his former disciple, he overhears 2 boys speaking ill of him, saying that he would fail the exam because he hadn't opened any meridians. At that moment, his friends arrive to comfort him, telling him to stay strong. At that moment, Lan Fei's uncle begins speaking about the test and announces that this year there would be changes. In previous years, it was enough to land a punch of 1,000 kilograms on the measuring crystal or to have opened at least one meridian to pass. However, since many people used external methods like pills and elixirs to momentarily boost their strength this year, it would be necessary to complete both tasks to pass the test. He then glares at the MC and, laughing, asks who would go first, as if challenging him. All the lackeys around him do the same, laughing at the MC. But the MC shouts, asking if they had lost something, and orders everyone to open their eyes wide. As he walks towards the crystal, he begins concentrating his strength into each of his meridians, making everyone go wild. When he reaches the crystal, all 7 meridians become visible on his back, causing a frenzy in the crowd. Lan Fei's uncle is completely shocked, lost in thought. The MC looks at him and says, "Pay close attention, being strong is nothing special." Then, he concentrates all his physical strength and strikes the crystal, leaving a massive crack in the center. The crowd of lackeys goes crazy, while his 3 friends celebrate wildly. He asks if everyone is satisfied and, looking at the professor, says that he's very busy and walks away, leaving the professor to contemplate his own insignificance. As the MC leaves, Lan Xian appears and greets him. The MC, with his typical disdain, flips him off and says that trained dogs shouldn't get in the way of others. Though irritated and wanting to kill the MC, Lan Xian maintains his composure and says that he came to settle his brother's problems. Wanting to provoke him further, the MC comments that after beating up the puppy, the bigger dog shows up. The lackey asks if all the members of the MC's clan are as rude as he is, but the MC confronts him, asking if he has a problem in the head. Their families have been feuding for years, and now, after his brother got trashed, he comes to settle scores. Lan Xian loses his temper, and the MC applauds, saying that now he's finally acting like a proper bully. Lan Xian then says that he doesn't want to argue pointlessly and pulls out a duel letter, making a speech to the crowd. He finishes by saying that the MC had 2 options: kneel and promise never to mess with his family again, or accept the duel and regret being born. The princess intervenes, accusing Lan Xian of being shameless since he, a 9-star warrior, was trying to intimidate an apprentice. But the MC, eager for an opportunity to face more lackeys, sarcastically suggests that Lan Xian might be so desperate because, like his brother, he had repressed homosexual tendencies and was frustrated. He even asks since when the Lan family started being ashamed of their actions. Lan Xian, trying to mock the MC, comments that he was speaking very arrogantly for someone who hides behind a woman. The MC, without hesitation, spits on him and says that despite Lan Xian having no shame in intimidating the weak, he accepts the duel. He adds that in 3 days, he would break Lan Xian's legs in the arena and make him lick his feet. His 3 friends are desperate, begging him not to be so impulsive since the difference in cultivation between the two was enormous. The MC, touched, thinks that even though the previous owner of this body had been useless for 15 years, he had managed to gain 3 good friends, unlike him, who had been alone at the top in his past life. He reassures his friends, saying that everything will be fine, while resting his arm on the princess's shoulder, making her blush. First conquest unlocked successfully. As the MC walks away, Lan Xian shouts that he better show up in 3 days to get beaten. The MC, unfazed, responds for him to relax, as he wouldn't wash his shoes for those 3 days so he could rub them well in Lan Xian's face. The MC walks away, thinking that the feud with the Lan family was old and, for now, he would deal with the small fries. In the future, he would destroy the Lan family completely. After this reflection, he arrives at the alchemy tower, where he finds a young man trying to refine something, but who was about to fail. The MC tries to give him some tips, but instead, ends up distracting the young man, causing an explosion. Surprised, the young man asks how the MC knew what was going to happen, and he responds that it was from the smell of the recipe. The MC then asks for Jerome, and the young man is impressed by the MC's ability to recognize recipes just by smell. He explains that Jerome was in isolation. At that moment, the young man's sister, who is a receptionist at the tower, arrives and recognizes the MC, commenting that one of the tower masters had praised one of his recipes greatly. She says she will take the MC to Jerome and encourages her brother not to give up. Depressed, the young man says that he was only holding his sister back and that maybe he didn't have any talent for alchemy. Seeing this, the MC suggests that he use 3 fewer herbs in the next recipe and gives other advice. The young man is skeptical, but after his sister insists he trusts the MC, he decides to give it a try. When the MC reaches Jerong's room, the alchemist comes out all happy, only to receive a kick to the face, catching the receptionist by surprise. After all, Jerong was known for being a very proud alchemist. Inside his room, the lackey was happy to have advanced thanks to the MC, but the MC quickly cuts the enthusiasm, saying that wasn't important and that he needed his help to refine contained 2 pills, one impactful and one explosive. Both were second-grade pills, which would normally be impossible for the lackey. However, the MC claimed that with his guidance, it would be easy, and ordered the lackey to quickly gather the ingredients, as he didn't have much time. The lackey gathers 3 batches and comments that the success rate for first-grade pills is 60%, and for second-grade pills, it should be even lower. When the MC asks why he had more than 1 batch on the table, the lackey hesitates, but the MC tells him to forget about it and start refining immediately, following his instructions. During the process, the MC yells and corrects practically everything the lackey does, giving the impression that he was bullying him more than actually helping. However, the 2 pills are completed using only 1 batch, leaving the lackey amazed, blossoming like a flower and wondering how it was possible. While Jiarong dreamed of becoming an excellent alchemist as long as the young master continued to teach him, the MC burst his bubble by asking why the purity of the pills was so low and calling him useless for making a mess over 2 trash pills. The lackey, disheartened, even collapses on the floor, defeated. Seeing the state of the lackey, the MC says that he will purify the pills himself, making the lackey go crazy again as he observes the hand positions used in the purification technique. When the MC finishes, he says that was the maximum purification he could achieve in his current state. The lackey, upon picking up the pill to check, becomes euphoric again upon realizing that it was perfect and declares that he wanted to follow the MC forever. The MC, indifferent, was leaving the tower when he noticed that the young man he had given some tips to had succeeded in his refinement. He gives a thumbs up to the receptionist and heads home to continue his cultivation. After all, he had to humiliate a lackey at the academy. In the director's office, the red-haired teacher was being updated on the recent news at the academy, as she had been absent. She couldn't believe that Li Yunxiao, the MC, had passed the exam with more than 1,000 kilograms and even unlocked his meridians. Furthermore, he had humiliated Lan Fei, practically causing his expulsion. The director laughs and comments that it's good for these spoiled brats from the big families to have some fights among themselves. He congratulates the redhead on becoming the youngest alchemy teacher and reveals that at the celebration party, he will announce her promotion to vice principal. The redhead, however, isn't interested in the announcement and stands up, determined to stop the new duel. As she walks down the hallway, the director appears by her side. She warns him not to try to stop her, reminding him that it was a simple tip from the MC that helped her pass the test, and that she didn't want to see him get beaten. The director, amused and intrigued, comments that this will be very interesting and decides to accompany her to watch the duel between the academy's 3rd strongest and the supposed failure. He was eager to see just how strong his students really were. Elsewhere in the academy, in the gravity room, Lando and the lackey who had been beaten by the MC were discussing the duel. The lackey tries to convince Lando to attend the duel between Lan Xian and the MC, but the girl refuses, saying she was busy. She comments that Lan Xian was digging his own grave by accepting the duel, and that he was no better than anyone else for going after the weak. Irritated, the lackey stands up and says he will go watch alone, as he was excited to see the MC die. The girl just thought how pathetic he was. After taking a beating, he found pleasure in seeing someone else do what he couldn't. At that moment, when she glanced over, she saw Li Yunxiao leaving the gravity room fully focused and was surprised. There's no point in regretting it now. The idiot who liked you doesn't exist anymore. At the arena, the entire crowd was gathered to witness a spectacle, but it wouldn't be quite what they were expecting. Lan Xian was meditating in the center of the arena, waiting for the MC, while the lackeys gossiped about the MC not showing up because he was afraid of dying. No one would judge him. After all, everyone would do the same. The princess asked her friends if the MC was really going to appear, but one of them replied that he didn't know. The MC had been missing for the past few days, and he asked the other friend if the MC had run away. The other friend said it was impossible. A man may die on his knees, but never with shame. Then someone shouted, announcing that the MC had arrived, and a lackey, seeing him confidently carrying his sword, declared that he was already dead. The crowd began gossiping, saying that the MC was an idiot for showing up for this duel. After all, this was basically suicide. In the arena, after everyone saw the MC arriving, they all began to wonder where he found the courage to show up and humiliate himself, or if he had some kind of plan. No one would have the courage to face an enemy who was several cultivation realms ahead. That would be courting death, and no one here was foolish. The MC's friends ran ahead, trying to stop him from committing such foolishness, saying that Lan Xian would kill him without mercy. At the same time, the red-haired teacher arrived, telling everyone to step back because she had something to say. She shouted, declaring that the duel was cancelled. The crowd started gossiping, commenting that now everything made sense. The trash from the Li family only had the courage to accept the duel and show up because he had someone to protect him and stop the duel from happening. The teacher struck a pose, saying that Li Yunxiao was her student and that she would protect him no matter what. It was her duty. The MC crossed his arms and asked mockingly why the teacher was worried about protecting Lan Xian since he wasn't even her student, suggesting that he would win the duel easily. He then walked past the teacher and told everyone they could leave because he would finish this quickly, leaving not only the teacher surprised but everyone in the arena. Seeing that it was impossible to stop the duel, the teacher released her aura and prepared to intervene in the fight at any moment to prevent the MC from getting hurt or crippled. When the two stood face to face, the lackey said he thought the MC would be too scared to dare show up. At that moment, a golden power covered the MC's body, and he asked the lackey if he thought simple words would save him today. Seeing the power the MC was releasing, everyone was in shock, even the teacher. The lackey who had been beaten by the MC in the gravity room was seething with anger at seeing the MC's progress. Lan Xian stood up, saying that now he understood how his half-brother had been defeated. After all, the MC had been hiding his power from everyone. Then Lan Xian released his cultivation to the fullest, once again leaving everyone in disbelief, thinking that this time the MC would surely die. At that moment, the director arrived, and while everyone greeted him respectfully, he commented that they were underestimating Li Yunxiao. The MC began walking toward the lackey, and the director noticed that as the MC walked, the ground trembled, as if the laws of the world were following his steps. But the lackey, unaware, thought the MC was walking clumsily out of fear and mocked him, saying that he was so scared he could barely walk straight. He added that he would be merciful. He wouldn't kill the MC, just beat him until he begged for mercy and would destroy the pride and dignity of his family. The lackey used the same technique as his brother Cloud Flow, but the MC dodged easily, as if it were nothing. This left the lackey terrified, thinking the MC had already surpassed his speed, and so it continued, with the MC effortlessly dodging every attack while walking in the air. Yes, he was walking in the air. Even the director and the teacher were astonished at the technique the MC was demonstrating. Every move he made was perfectly synchronized, as if following an extraordinary rhythm and sequence. To drive the old man even crazier, the MC began gathering the power of heaven and earth. Everyone watching the fight was terrified when they heard the director say this, and in the end, the director went mad and burst into laughter. It was too much excitement for the old man's heart, folks. The MC had managed to cover his body with the power of heaven and earth, and at that moment, he looked more like a god than a boy, constantly absorbing the world's energy. Using this power, the MC made a gesture, and several golden hands appeared in the sky behind him, beginning to descend upon the lackey, who could do nothing but watch in disbelief. The MC then recited the technique, saying, "Life passes in an instant, float in the sky like a swan. I thought it would be something cool, but I was wrong, folks." The director, once again in disbelief, shouted when he saw the MC using the floating life seal, commenting that with the MC's current power, it should be impossible for him to pull off something like that. After all, the difficulty was immense. Even the director himself couldn't do something like that, folks. This old man is just like the MC's chubby friend. He'll end up dying of a heart attack with all these surprises. Both the director and the teacher were wondering if the MC was somehow a disciple of Yang Di. It was too much information for them to process in such a short time. The golden palm obliterated the lackey, leaving him crushed on the ground like stepped-on dog poop. Everyone was once again caught by surprise. With just one blow, the MC had defeated the leader of the Xian gang, a 9-star martial warrior and third-ranked among the most powerful in Tianshui, of course, among the students. While everyone was still processing this information, the MC looked at the lackey lying on the ground and said, "As I said, no one can save you." The director shouted for the MC to stop and rushed to intervene, but the MC stomped with full force on Lan Xian's dantian, destroying his cultivation and crippling him. Everyone was in disbelief and shock, seeing the MC's cruelty while focusing on Lan Xian's devastating condition. The director landed nearby, seeing that everything was already over, but the MC still delivered a kick to the guy's face and said, "I told you I'd make you lick my feet, and I always keep my word." The lackey's condition was deplorable, completely destroyed. Naturally, the MC took the lackey's jade as well, and the director shouted that he was going a bit too far. However, the MC simply kicked the lackey, who now looked more like a zombie, toward the old man, as if he were a piece of trash. And the director, instead of catching the boy, who was his student, tossed him aside and ignored him. The director stands face to face with MC and asks why he was still doing this, as he had already crippled his opponent. MC replies that it was a duel to the death, meaning the loser's life was in the hands of the winner, and tells the old man to mind his own business. At this moment, the director is astonished by the boy's audacity. The teachers and MC's friends are also shocked. After all, in Tianshui, the director was known as a king. Not even the heads of the Alchemy Association or the royalty dared speak to him like that. Furious, The director asks the boy if he has any idea who he is talking to. MC responds that he was the director of Jialan Academy, a 100-year-old martial king, and nothing more, adding that he found it ridiculous that the director thought he deserved any respect. MC further provokes him, saying that if it were him, he would be so ashamed he'd bang his head against the wall until he died. MC's friends and the teacher stared at him in disbelief, thinking he had gone mad. The director, meanwhile, lets out a roar, ordering MC to die. Enraged, he releases his cultivation, exerting massive pressure on the boy to teach him a lesson. Struggling to resist the pressure, MC asks if the old man wasn't ashamed of intimidating someone nearly 100 years younger and promises that if he survived this, he would return the punishment 100 times worse. Then, he manages to stand, even with all the pressure on him. The director cannot believe it and wonders what the boy's body is made of. The teacher, observing everything, feels MC's aura and looks at the statue in fear. The expression and posture of MC at that moment were identical to Gu Feiyang. Spitting a bit of blood, MC declares that a simple egocentric martial king thinks he cannot retaliate, and that even though the old man has a long life, he would make him pay for this. MC takes the explosive pill. The director, confused, wonders how even a martial master or grandmaster would have already succumbed to such pressure, but the boy was still standing. He considers whether to use all his power to teach a lesson, but MC wouldn't let that happen. MC begins making hand signs, and clouds and winds start to stir. The director, the most powerful in Tianshui for decades, was sweating nervously before a mere one-star martial warrior. Who was this boy, after all? The winds rise, and the world trembles. The winds and clouds will roar because of me. The technique of Lord Gu Feiyang, the great palm of winds and clouds. Long ago, at the peak of the snowstorm, in the Xinxiao Temple, the martial sovereign Gu Feiyang, the conqueror, annihilated 10 9-star martial sovereigns using the great palm of winds and clouds. He insulted the temple's owner 3 times, roamed freely in forbidden areas, and showed disdain for everything. This story has been passed down for generations. The director orders the boy to stop immediately, not out of fear of the technique. After all, the boy was still weak, but out of concern for insulting Yang Di. For MC to know this technique, he must surely be one of Yang Di's disciples. The director turns his back on the boy, as if nothing had happened, and says that since the two agreed to the duel, not even he, as the director, had the right to interfere with the outcome. But he warns MC not to act like this in the future. All the gossipers watching the spectacle begin to wonder since when the director had become so kind, as his temper was well known. Ignoring all the gossip, the teacher appears instantly in front of MC and orders him to undo the technique. MC sighs, calling the director egocentric, and says the old man was lucky this time. Without paying attention to the teacher, MC sits in a lotus position and begins to absorb all the energy from the explosive pill. Feeling that the technique MC was using was strange but also very powerful, the teacher takes the opportunity to cultivate as well, trying to use this force to break through her cultivation level. The gossipers start to wonder why she was doing this. Noticing what was happening, shouts that the duel was over and dismisses everyone so as not to disturb the two in this delicate moment. Sometime later, the teacher, amazed by the amount of energy she felt, which was even able to help her advance, wonders what kind of celestial technique MC had obtained. When she opens her eyes, MC is staring at her with a silly expression, which makes her feel embarrassed. She asks what he was doing. MC responds that he was just waiting to congratulate her on her advancement, but the redhead is startled to realize that he had advanced as well. MC says that his advancement was nothing compared to hers, now that she was in the Four Guardians realm, but she quickly ignores him, pulls his ear, and demands he explain everything that happened while she was cultivating. MC says he was very injured and would explain everything once he recovered. She then grants him 3 days while leaving the arena. MC starts laughing and says that her talent was extraordinary and that it would be worth training her. Without wasting any more time, he heads to the gravity chambers to cultivate the energy from the explosive pill as quickly as possible. Everyone who sees him coming steps aside, afraid of somehow angering him and ending up like Lan Xian. The girl, who always looked down on him before, hears the gossip from the lackeys about how MC had defeated Lan Xian, who would now live the rest of his life as a cripple after being destroyed with just 1 blow. They say not even the first or second ranked in Tianshui could resist Li Yunxiao, not to mention the cruelty he showed after defeating the lackey. The girl can't understand how the useless boy who couldn't even open a meridian had become so strong. Quickly, MC finishes his training, advancing to the peak of a 2-star warrior, and his first grade soul strength was 100% restored. He is surprised by the divine expansion of his soul. Not even in his dreams did he think he could recover his soul's strength so quickly. But that's great for him. After all, now he could forge weapons and pills on his own. When he returns to his room and is about to enter, his instincts warn him that something is wrong, but it's too late as the teacher pulls him inside. It had already been 5 days, and he hadn't met her to explain everything that happened. So, MC gives the excuse that he was cultivating and lost track of time. When the teacher realizes that he has reached the peak of 2 stars, she is frightened and scolds him about deliberately using fast break pills. She asks for a good explanation, but MC plays dumb, asking what she was talking about. She bombards him with so many questions that he's about to collapse. To get out of this situation easily, MC asks what the director thinks about all of this, and she replies that the old man believes that Yangdi has accepted him as a disciple. MC, shamelessly, gives a thumbs up and says that the director was very smart to accept that right away. He thinks the teacher would accept the lie immediately, but she says that while others may easily believe that lie, she knows it's false. First, because MC's family didn't have enough influence to convince a lord, and second, because Yangdi didn't know the great palm of winds and clouds technique. MC grows suspicious of how she was so certain that Yangdi didn't know this technique, but realizing that he didn't want to reveal anything, she decides not to press him. She says it's fine, that everyone has their secrets, and that she was just a bit worried about him. However, she tells him to come with her to meet the master she had found for him. MC tries to resist, saying he didn't have soul power, but the redhead responds that he wouldn't decide that, and it would be up to his new master at the Alchemy Association. Jiarong, MC's servant, was giving a lecture, and everyone was listening attentively when the redhead arrived, shouting that the disciple she had spoken of was with her. Without even turning around, the guy tells her to wait in the main hall, and that he'd test him soon. The teacher drags MC to the hall, and the tower's receptionist appears, thanking MC for helping her brother last time. He had managed to refine many pills and made a lot of money thanks to MC's tips. MC responds, saying that her brother has a lot of talent, and that it was nothing he did. He just needed to keep working hard, and soon he would become a great alchemist. Embarrassed, the receptionist says she doesn't know how to thank him for all the kindness he's shown. MC then replies that it's simple, she just needs to use her body to thank him. Unfortunately, whether out of jealousy or anger, the redhead lands a punch on MC and says that this wasn't the place for the two of them to flirt. Because of the commotion, everyone who had been focused on the lecture starts complaining and asking them to leave, catching Jiarong's attention. Seeing MC getting scolded because of him, Jiarong already imagines his fate with the words, "Rest in peace," in his head. A lackey who had been listening to the lecture offers to take care of the idiots who were causing the disturbance. Hearing this, Jiarong sends the lackey flying and begins treating MC like a god, calling him young master. The teacher, not understanding anything, starts smacking MC's head, telling him to introduce himself properly. MC then shouts, calling Jiarong master, but ends up getting another smack on the head. The lackey, seeing MC get hit because of him, starts losing more and more HP, while the protagonist shows a frustrated expression. Desperate, the lackey slaps himself and falls to his knees, begging the teacher to stop hitting MC. He claims that the young master has immense potential, and that there's no need for any soul test. Everyone watching is shocked, unable to understand how the proud Jiarong was kneeling there. In disbelief, the teacher asks if he would accept the boy as a disciple, and Jiarong replies yes. But upon looking at MC's face, he quickly changes his mind and says no. Confused by his indecision, the teacher asks if he will accept him or not, but Jiarong starts crying on the floor and begs to do anything, as long as she doesn't hit MC anymore. Suspicious, the teacher looks in MC's direction, but at that moment, Master Zhang, the leader of the Imperial Alchemists of Tianshui, a third-grade alchemist, arrives. MC senses the old man's energy and immediately realizes that he was at least a third-grade alchemist. While he's thinking about this, the teacher comments that for Master Zhang to have come personally, Rishue's illness must have worsened. Caught off guard, MC asks what illness his friend Rishue has, and the teacher explains that she was born with a yin energy disease in her meridians. When she was young, specialists hired by her father said she would only live for 5 years, but His Majesty, her father, obtained a recipe from an alchemist that allowed her to live for another 10 years, and that was 9 years ago. MC says that this disease cannot be cured with ordinary pills, only with the 5 Dragons Pure Yang pill, which could save her. However, it is an 8th grade pill, and no one could make it nowadays. At that moment, MC simply asks to go back, saying he would talk to his new master about a few things. The teacher notices that Jiarong's usual cold and proud attitude, where he despised everyone, had changed around MC. He was acting like a servant before him, but she lets it slide and leaves. Inside Jerong's room, MC orders him to announce to everyone that he himself would cure the princess's illness. The lackey is suspicious, so MC explains that with the golden acupuncture technique, it would also be possible to cure Rishue's illness, though it would take some time and soul power, but it would be easy for him. The lackey is stunned upon learning that MC knows the legendary golden acupuncture technique, but MC doesn't care about his reaction and orders him to announce that he will carry out the procedure, though at the right moment, MC will take over the treatment. The lackey then asks if, while MC is using the technique, he could at least watch the process. MC replies that he can do whatever he wants, but he should be prepared to take over the princess's treatment or she will die. MC hands over a list of materials that he will need for the treatment. When the lackey sees the list, he comments that it contains many items, including materials for forging. MC, as he prepares to leave, says that he still doesn't have a Xian weapon and that he'll take the opportunity to forge one along with the needles. He bids farewell and leaves. In the city, MC is walking around, searching for the necessary materials to forge the needles. He wants to personally find the materials and do the forging himself to ensure there are no errors in the princess's treatment. At that moment, he spots the blonde girl who had tried to set him up earlier, pretending to be kidnapped, being coerced by a fat man over the price of a medicine. The fat man says that since she doesn't have the right amount, he could sell her the medicine, but in return, this delicious thing should become his girlfriend. Obviously, she refuses. In fact, she even says not even in her dreams, trying to humiliate the fat man further and starts to walk away. However, the man reminds her that her sick brother won't survive without that medicine, suggesting she reconsider, saying the deal would only last for 3 months. She still refuses and asks him to sell the medicine on credit, promising to pay the full amount in 3 months. But the fat man doesn't accept and continues to threaten her, reminding her that her brother won't survive long without the medicine. He tries to grab her breasts, but at that moment, MC slams his hand away and asks who the audacious pig was that was trying to touch his woman, leaving the blonde blushing and smiling at MC. When the blonde sees MC approaching, she remembers perfectly the day of the setup she participated in, and how our boy took advantage of the situation, if you recall. The fat man, unable to believe what was happening, incredulously asks, "You think I'll allow this? Do you have any idea who you're messing with?" He continues, stating that MC was doomed for messing with the wrong person, but MC remains unfazed, making it clear that even if it were the king in front of him, he would do the same thing. Ironically, the fat man thought he was important because he was an apprentice alchemist of Jiaro. Not understanding his situation, the fat man brazenly orders MC to kneel, hand over 100 gold coins for medical expenses, and maybe, just maybe, he would forgive him. MC replies, saying he knows Jerome well but has never heard of any of his apprentices. While speaking, he pulls out a bag of gold and throws it to the ground for the fat man, adding, "You can even take my coins, but let's see if you'll survive long enough to spend them." Faced with MC's stare, the fat man trembles all over and instinctively realizes that if he picks up the coins in front of him, he will surely die. The blonde, observing the whole situation unfold, starts to recall everything MC had done since he began his cultivation. It was almost unbelievable. In the arena duel, his attack seemed like a dream. Realizing he was stuck between a rock and a hard place, the fat man runs off, shouting for his so-called brother, Han, who was one of the city guards. When Han sees the fat man, he immediately draws his sword and starts walking toward MC, sending the gossipers into a frenzy. The audacity of this new lackey. He arrives and tells MC that he doesn't know him and doesn't care. He gives 2 options: kneel, hand over the money, leave the girl, and disappear, or become crippled and spend the rest of his life in a cell. Han finishes by saying that MC had only 3 seconds to decide. Thinking the situation was already under control, the fat man bends down to pick up the bags of coins on the ground, but my friend, he takes such a well-placed kick to the stomach that his dantian is shattered instantly, turning him into a cripple in cultivation. Seeing everyone in despair, MC lets out a laugh and says he chooses the second option, while the blonde girl is completely confused, lost in the chaos. The guard no longer bothers to talk and attacks MC with all his might. However, MC effortlessly catches the attack with 2 fingers, as if it were the easiest thing in the world. Everyone is shocked by the scene, and the lackey finally understands why the boy in front of him was so arrogant. His strength was real, no joke. Then the lackey unleashes the power of his jade sword, a Xian weapon. With his weapon activated, he regains his previous arrogance, as a sword of this level was extremely rare, and few alchemists were capable of forging it. But MC, as always, simply cracks his neck and comments that it's just a piece of trash, a first-grade Xian weapon. He easily dodges the lackey's strike and hits the sword with several precise punches, deactivating it. After that, the lackey goes mad, desperately trying to reactivate the sword in a dramatic fashion, but miserably fails. Everyone watching the ridiculous scene also doesn't understand what had happened. The lackey is in disbelief, thinking that the sword, which cost his family's entire fortune and for which he had begged countless times for alchemist Leon to forge, had been broken. At this moment, MC starts laughing and, with arms crossed, tells the lackey that if he had any more tricks up his sleeve, now would be the perfect time to show them. The lackey, already lost in his misery, screams for all his helpers to kill the boy in front of him. He no longer cared about anything. MC laughs at the weaklings running toward him. He simply dodges the attacks and begins to defeat each one with a single blow. To the blonde girl, who watched everything from the side, it seemed as if his movements were a dance. MC, noticing her confusion, explains that this was the floral fist technique, invented by a martial sovereign named Li Yunxiao, a disordered technique meant to catch enemies by surprise. Taking advantage of the easy fight, MC comments that even though the sword was trash, it was still a Xian weapon and should have some value. He takes the sword for himself, breaks the lackey's arms, and asks if there's anything else the lackey could give him. The lackey, trying to save himself, uses his father's name, saying that he would destroy MC's family. But MC laughs and wishes him good luck, telling the lackey to gather his men and try, saying that he would be waiting calmly in the middle of all this mess. In the midst of the commotion, 2 more guards arrive and ask what was going on. The humiliated lackey claims that he was the captain of the 3rd Brigade of the Imperial City and that he had been attacked, pleading with the new lackeys to save him. The 2 guards, being state protectors, asked who the arrogant one was that dared to attack the city's guards, ordering MC to drop the sword and surrender immediately. But MC says they should ask what happened first, as it wasn't even his fault. The guards attacked him first, and he was simply innocent. However, as we already know, the new foolish lackey doesn't believe him. Even so, he still has his doubts, as he can't believe that a single boy had defeated several guards with cultivation far superior to his own. This doesn't stop the guard from attacking MC without much conversation, following the famous motto, attack first, talk later. Obviously, our MC wouldn't be defeated easily and activates the sword, which had seemed broken until recently, but in his hands, it seemed much stronger than it actually was, leaving the lackey wondering how he could produce so much power with such a low cultivation level. Sensing the tremendous strength emanating from the sword, the guard mistakes it for a mystical weapon and already starts thinking of ways to steal it for himself. But as arrogant as he may be, our MC isn't stupid. He quickly attacks to get rid of at least one of the guards, because if the 2 joined forces, he would likely lose. After exchanging blows, MC uses the demonic wind's kick ability. When the lackey is off balance, he fakes a move and uses all his power to incapacitate one of them so he can deal with the other guard. Seeing that his friend was about to lose to the boy, the other guard, who had not yet joined the battle, cowardly attacks from behind. But who was MC? A martial sovereign who had once been among the strongest in the world. Everything until now had been a feint to catch the 2 guards off guard. Seizing the opportunity, he uses the moon's slash ability to finish off both guards at once. At that moment, it was beautiful to see the despair on the idiots' faces in the face of imminent death. With no way out, the 2 guards use a combined technique, adopting a horrible pose. Even with the pathetic stance, the attack is very strong, and MC realizes he would be defeated, so he turns to avoid a fatal blow. For the blonde girl, who had been watching everything from the beginning, the situation was surreal. Li Yunxiao had forced the state guardians to fight together to defeat him, and even then, he managed to avoid the fatal blow, shouting for her to run before he was defeated. But that was no time to stand there in shock. If she were captured now, the chance of helping MC would be 0. So, she starts running to find help. Despite the first guard's warning, the 2 guardians were more concerned with MC, who, being just a martial warrior, had forced them to use a combined technique to survive. If someone told them this story, they would surely laugh. But setting that aside, the guard grabs the sword for himself. The other guard, who owned the sword, tries to ask for it back, but his colleague replies that he cleaned up the mess for him and now he was leaving, saying no thanks were necessary. Seeing the sword, he had spent everything he had on being taken away. The guard orders the useless lackeys on the ground to capture the boy who caused all this trouble. He swears to himself that for making him lose his sword, the boy would regret being born. The blonde girl, running and crying while thinking of MC, finally reaches the Li family mansion. She feels relieved, remembering that MC was the eldest grandson of the family and that, with the Li family's prestige, he would surely be saved. Inside the mansion, a man was marveling at his second-grade Xian sword when he sees a guard rushing by in a panic. He asks what happened, and the guard relays everything the girl had told him. The man responds that it didn't matter if the trash of the family had been caught. The guard should go tell the girl that the master had been informed and that she need not worry about the matter anymore. The guard then informs the girl that everything was under control, that the superiors of the family had been notified, and that steps would be taken. The current master of the Li family was a Tianshui military veteran named Li Chuanong. He was one of the 6 most powerful and prestigious men beneath the king, and knowing that Li Yunxiao's grandfather would personally handle the problem, everyone was certain that MC would be safe. The girl leaves, though feeling that something was wrong. She could only swallow the sadness that began to rise within her. In another part of the city, our MC wakes up in critical condition. He was severely injured, with all the meridians in his body damaged. He could barely move and was even chained in a cell. It seemed like he was in a prison. Looking around, he sees several other people in similar situations. An old man tells him that this was the private prison of the Long family and mentions how courageous the young are, as he heard the guards saying that Li Yunxiao had broken the arms of the Long family's young master. MC asks why he was in a private cell instead of the capital's prison. The old man replies that it was a small prison owned by the family, used for personal purposes. MC becomes furious. He couldn't believe that the Long family had dared to create a private prison. He decides that as soon as he gets out of there, he will report everything to the royal court. The old man starts laughing, followed by a coughing fit, after hearing the boy's statement. He tells MC that he broke the arms of the Long family's young master, and thought he could leave easily. He shares that when he was MC's age, he spat on the ground in front of the Long family's gates and was captured and imprisoned, remaining there ever since. The old man begins pointing to the other prisoners and telling their stories, each more absurd than the last. Unlike what the old man expected, MC simply laughs and tells everyone to stay calm and safe, stating that when he escapes, he will take everyone with him. The declaration sounded as though the escape was already a done deal. The old man doesn't take MC seriously and warns him not to try anything foolish. Even though the place was horrible, there was still food, albeit spoiled, every day. Without further ado, MC stops arguing with the old man and begins activating the tyrannical body technique. The old men around him start commenting on how long it would take before he gave up on the idea of escaping. Unfazed by what was happening around him, MC feels a strange power in his dantian, slowly circulating through his body, repairing his damaged meridians. Without a doubt, this was the best body technique of all. At the Alchemy Association, Jerome, MC's servant, goes into shock when the teacher tells him that Li Yunxiao had disappeared. He had already taken responsibility for handling the princess's situation and was being pressured to carry out the golden acupuncture procedure, as the princess didn't have much time left to live. Desperate and out of options, Jiarong falls to his knees and confesses that, in truth, the one who was supposed to treat the princess was MC. He was merely the boy's lackey. The 3 people present are stunned, and Alchemist Zhang says that this was too much, declaring that treating the princess's life like a toy was unacceptable. He orders that Jiarong be imprisoned and executed as soon as everything is over. Jiarong tries to speak, but is quickly silenced with a kick to the mouth, left broken on the ground. The guy was so irritated that he even lashed out at the teacher when she tried to talk to him, but she didn't take it too seriously. She explained everything that had been happening with Li Yunxiao, his advice on alchemy, and the power he demonstrated in the duel, leaving the 2 old men incredulous. After all, everyone knew about the Li family's trash condition, unable to cultivate because his meridians couldn't be opened. The man was even more shocked to discover that the boy not only won the duel against someone with much higher cultivation levels but did it with a single blow, using the floating life seal. Thinking about the possibility that the boy was a disciple of Yangbi and really knew the golden acupuncture technique, Lord Zhang ordered them to use all available resources. Even if they had to search the desert, they had to find Li Yunxiao as soon as possible. After all the commotion and Alchemist Zhang's order to search the country for RMC, the scene cuts to a bar. The blonde girl was working as a waitress while Yu Hejing and Luo Landuo, the 2 who always mocked MC, were arguing about his incredible feats. Luo Landuo stands up and tells the lackey that he talks too much crap and that she's had enough. She bids him farewell, saying he shouldn't look for her again. Meng Wu approaches the guy, who was slumped over the table, to deliver another drink. But the guy immediately starts hitting on her, like a dog in heat, trying to impress her with his high cultivation and all. She tries to sell the drink and leave, but the guy, being extremely obnoxious, tries to buy her as well. Mengwu brushes the lackey's hand off her and tells him, at the very least, to have some dignity, as he was already crossing the line. It seems like this blonde has some sort of curse. Wherever she goes, there's always some lackey trying to buy her. The guy gets irritated and starts acting aggressively, saying she was just a waitress, and if he told her to become his girlfriend, she should obediently accept. While the lackey was putting on his pathetic show, MC's two friends walk into the bar, talking about their friend's sudden disappearance, and notice the girl who had set him up before. The lackey, realizing that their cultivation was lower than his, tries to intimidate them, but one of them quickly responds, saying that they are friends of Li Yunxiao. He warns the guy that if he keeps talking that nonsense, they'll drag him outside the bar and have the kind of conversation that might cost him an arm, a leg, or make him disappear forever. Immediately, the lackey changes his attitude, saying he doesn't have time for games and needs to go cultivate. He leaves the bar, claiming he didn't even know the girl. After getting rid of the lackey, the two friends start discussing MC's disappearance again. When the blonde girl hears this, she asks if Li Yunxiao still hadn't been saved by the Li family, even though it had been 3 days since she had informed them. She explains the situation to his two friends, and the three agree to inform everyone and plan a rescue for MC. Meanwhile, in the Long family courtyard, the second young master was training, with his father watching. However, the father had a worried expression and wasn't paying much attention to his son's training. For the past few days, the entire country had been searching for a boy, but no one could find him. The leader of the guards was overwhelmed because of it, unaware that his family was doomed because of his son. But setting that aside, he asks his son where his older brother is, as he hadn't been seen in recent days. The boy, all excited, responds that a few days ago, some brat had broken his brother's arm, and as soon as he was healed, he went to meet him in the prison cell. At first, the father didn't think much of it, and commented that, since his eldest son was always slacking off, it was no surprise that anyone stronger could break his arm. But as the boy kept talking, the father's expression began to change, becoming very serious, fearing that his eldest son had made a colossal mistake. As the boy couldn't quite remember the brat's name, he said it was something like Yun. The old man sighed in relief, almost dying from the stress, but his relief lasted less than a second when the boy corrected himself, saying that the name was actually Li Yunxiao. At that moment, the soul of the Long family's patriarch practically left his body, and the scene seemed to turn black and white. Soon, the guards arrived, informing that they were being invaded. The Long family's area had been compromised. The family had used a voice technique to shout at whoever had invaded the family mansion, boosting the guards' spirits with their master's power. However, less than a second later, a voice using the same technique, but much stronger, echoed, causing everyone to cough up. Ketchup. The voice announced that the commander of the state's guardians, Luo Yunxiang, and master alchemist Zhang were declaring the occupation of the mansion, and anyone who resisted would be considered a traitor and killed on the spot. The Long family head ran to meet them, already knowing the reason, and asked why they were doing this, all the while thinking he would love to end his own son's life. The teacher asked the blonde to recount everything that had happened on the fateful day of MC's defeat. While Zhang and the teacher spoke with the Long family head, MC's servant could only think about the bad luck he had been having lately. The chubby guy, who had kickstarted this whole mess, had only attended one of his classes and ended up causing all this trouble. He was in deep trouble now because if Li Yunxiao got angry with him. Zhang then asked the question everyone wanted to know, was Li Yunxiao still alive? With no way out, the head threw his eldest son under the bus and said he didn't know either. He admitted that it had all been the work of his stupid and treacherous son, who had planned the whole mess, and invited them to the prison. In the prison, MC was quite calm, cultivating his meridians, which were already healed thanks to his absurd body technique. Now, he only needed time to recover his ki, but unfortunately, the lackeys arrived sooner than he expected. Surrounded by guards, the eldest son of the Long family ordered the guards to bring the boy to him. Today would be the day he would make MC regret being born. They tied MC, who pretended to be unconscious, to a sort of cross. Li Yunxiao observed that they were surrounded by 35 people, including 12 martial warriors, with a martial master hidden among them. Since he hadn't yet recovered his ki, MC knew he couldn't open a path to escape and also didn't know the situation outside the prison, so he decided to stall the lackeys for a while. The men threw a solution on him that, when it came into contact with his wounds, began to corrode his muscles and veins, causing unbearable pain. The lackey mocked him, saying that MC should try not to die from it, but everyone noticed that all the wounds on his body were already completely healed. Our boy opened his eyes and asked who the piece of trash was that was yelling. Since when is trash allowed to speak like this? The lackey couldn't hold back and threw a punch at him. MC splattered a lot of ketchup on the guy's face. Then, he laughed and said he remembered him as one of the dogs who had been beaten up by him before. He even asked how the lackey's sword was doing. The guy lost control and tried to rush to kill him, but the chubby one held him back and told him to calm down. He said the boy had realized he was going to die and was trying to provoke them into giving him a quick and painless death. They had made preparations to torture the boy, so he wouldn't have an easy death. The lackey, now calmer, commented that he almost fell for MC's provocations, but now MC would face the Long family's execution. He ordered the guards to whip MC 100 times, but not to kill him. However, Li Yunxiao wasn't paying attention to that. He had noticed that even when being hit, a good part of the force from the blow was absorbed by his body. Shocked, he realized that this was another effect of the tyrannical body technique. In the past, he had fought against the tyrant sovereign for several days and nights in an insane battle that shattered the sky and earth, nearly destroying the sacred city. The tyrant sovereign's massive body had managed to resist his ki, and in the end, MC was the loser. Now, he understood why. The tyrant sovereign had been absorbing energy through the blows received throughout the fight. But the technique had a weakness. Who would let themselves get hit to absorb energy in the middle of a fight? Not even the tyrant sovereign would allow himself to be struck unless it was absolutely necessary. However, MC's situation was different. The lackeys were hitting him without killing him, which was perfect for our protagonist to absorb some free energy. He even mocks them, asking if that's all the losers had to offer. Annoyed, the lackey hits MC even harder, making him recover his primordial ki more quickly. The old man, who was the strongest there, comments that the boy's bones were truly resilient. Even after being hit so many times, he hadn't shed a single tear. The chubby one is pleased, saying it's good that he's tough because if he died after just a few whips, it wouldn't be any fun. But MC didn't care about these guys at all. He was focused, thinking he was just a little short of becoming a 3-star martial warrior. However, at that moment, the lackey with the bandaged hand yells, "Stop!" MC becomes irritated, realizing the lackey thought he had underestimated him. The lackey then says that now the main event would begin. MC thinks he's already at the peak of a 2-star martial warrior and could even break free from the chains if he wanted to. But he knew it wasn't the right time yet. His body was still too injured, and there was still a second stage martial master among them. Deciding to wait and see what would happen, MC watches as the chubby one calls over 2 guards and throws some powder called Wood Razor on them. The 2 guards, who had seemed tough before, start hugging each other like 2 dogs in heat. The chubby guy laughs hysterically and says that even a eunuch could revive his energetic stick by sniffing that stuff. At that moment, MC has an unexpected psychological attack. What a disgusting pig! Even the lackey, who is friends with the chubby guy, starts vomiting at the sight. The boy comments that just one sniff had made the guards act like that, and that he had prepared a whole box of that powder for MC. But with this psychological blow, MC feels he has finally reached the long-awaited level of a 3-star martial warrior. Without further delay, he decides to break free from the chains and sends the perverted chubby guy flying to the 5th circle of hell. At that moment, the powder spreads throughout the room, leaving all the guards in an ecstatic state, if you catch my drift. The eldest son of the Long family panics and runs after the chubby guy, demanding the antidote. The boy just laughs, saying there was no antidote, and tells him to come closer, saying they could do something crazy. He promptly receives a kick to the face. The lackey then tells the old man, who was the strongest there, to kill MC quickly, but as soon as the old man removes his clothes to start the fight, MC is already on top of him, ready to destroy him in a brawl. The old man releases all his power, tearing his clothes, and asks if a mere martial warrior dares to face him. But MC uses the same technique he had used earlier, the soul attack. With that small distraction, and using the demonic eye technique, he lands a massive blow on the old man. The old man, surprised, says it's impressive for a boy to use a soul technique, but when he turns to the side, he sees all the guards sending him hearts and blowing kisses. Even the Long family's young master starts taking off his clothes, ready to satisfy his deep ambitions. Seeing that everything was under control, MC starts changing clothes and walks out as if nothing happened, leaving the prison. He thinks he should return to the Alchemist Guild quickly to treat his friend, as there could be no more delays. As soon as he steps out of the door, everyone is already preparing to go in and search for him. While everyone wonders what's going on, they hear a strange noise coming from the prison. One of MC's friends says he'll go check what that sound is, but MC tries to stop him. Alchemist John distracts him, asking about the noise coming from the dungeon. By that time, the friend returns, vomiting. vomiting. I don't even want to know what he saw down there. Another one of MC's friends asks what's going on, and MC tries to stop him from going down as well, but the guy insists, saying he needs to see what it is. MC explains that the son of the Long family had invited his lackeys for a little party down there, but no one listens to him. Everyone heads down to see what's happening. At this point, the author leaves us with the following image. The next scene has been censored for obvious reasons. After a while, everyone is on the verge of death in the Long family courtyard. The head of the Long family asks exactly what happened down there, and MC jokes, saying that his son invited him to join in. Without going into details, he asks what kind of crap the family head had taught his son. The family head gets irritated, but as he looks at MC, he realizes that even though the boy is just a 3-star martial warrior, the energy and presence this kid exudes give the impression that, even if he attacked, he wouldn't be able to defeat him. But he thinks that this was just the effect of the scene he witnessed down there. But MC's servant says, like father, like son, this must be something that runs in the family. Of course, the Long family head immediately attacks MC's servant, cursing him in every way possible, but no one really pays attention. Alchemist Zhang asks if the boy is Li Yunxiao, and MC confirms, saying he knows exactly who he is. The alchemist then asks how MC recognized him, and MC points out the important people at his side and notes that he wasn't the king, so he made a few deductions. The man laughs and says it seems like MC really is different from the others. Perhaps he truly does know the golden acupuncture technique. MC jokes and says, "Let me give it a try." The man replies, "Try. The princess has an extremely noble status. If your skills aren't up to par, how can I just let you play with her life?" MC, still mocking, says, "If even I can't fix this, who do you think will? At least let me try. What's your problem?" This MC is so cheeky that, after getting serious for a moment, the man just laughs at him and says, "Alright, go ahead. Give it a try." He adds, "If you manage to save the princess's life, then no matter what happens in Tianshui, I'll do my best to protect you. But if you fail, even if your grandfather comes, he won't be able to save you." At this point, MC stops joking and seriously says, "My life is in my own hands." The man is shocked but says nothing more because at that moment, MC's servant chimes in, saying that everyone should stop arguing, as the focus should be on treating the princess. Looking around, MC notices the blonde girl and says that last time she set a trap for him, but this time she brought people to rescue him. Now they were even. He adds that it just so happens that he needs an assistant to help save the princess's life. The girl tries to say she's kind of useless and won't be of any help, but MC reassures her, "If I say you're useful, trust me. Come with me." MC informs Alchemist Zhang that he will need the blonde girl and the redhead as his assistants, and that Zhang would need to cover their payments. The man simply says, "Do whatever you want." He was rich, after all. The teacher is thrilled when she hears this, realizing she'll get to see the golden acupuncture technique firsthand. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. At that moment, at the Alchemist's Guild, the entire 4th floor was an ice chamber due to the princess's illness. Her condition had spread ice throughout the area. She was resting on a jade bed that slowed the disease's progression. MC blamed himself for having such a low soul power and not noticing his friend's illness sooner. While the teacher asked if 30 golden needles and a curtain would really be enough to save her, she also asked MC if he was confident. Alchemist Zhang asked him to be honest. What were the chances of success? 20%? 30%? If the chance was lower than that, he would have to inform His Majesty about the situation. Everyone grew tense, waiting for the answer. MC then said that if she weren't a woman and he could touch her directly to administer the acupuncture, he would have a 100% chance of success. But look how cheeky this guy is. He says that, since she's a woman, he would need to make the needles fly into her acupuncture points from 15 meters away through a curtain. Also, because of the little incident at the Long family, he only had a 90% chance of curing her. The man completely loses his composure. This was the princess's life, and this boy was joking, saying he would do the entire procedure from 15 meters away and behind a curtain. Then the other alchemist focused on the main point. He said that, despite the challenges, a 90% success rate was still impressive. This kid was playing with everyone. He remembered that Yangdi once said that to perform such a long-distance acupuncture technique, the soul power of an alchemist had to be at least rank 5. Otherwise, it would be impossible. The teacher also lost her patience and slapped him, asking where all this confidence came from. "Do you think you're Yangdi himself to do this from such a distance? I just can't wait to see her face when she finds out he's actually Gu Feiyang, the eternal sovereign and Yangdi's master. It's going to be hilarious." She reminded reminded him that the princess was on the verge of death and he should take things more seriously. He responded saying, "I'm being very serious. And since you all know the princess is close to dying, why are you causing so many problems?" He then told them to stop talking and ordered the blonde to position the princess and the teacher to raise the curtain as they were about to start. But Alchemist Zhang immediately pulled down the curtain and said that the princess's life was at stake here. "Can you stop playing around?" And MC pulled the curtain back up, saying that's precisely why. For him to administer the golden acupuncture, the princess needed to be naked. How could a teenager like him resist her delicious body? He wouldn't be able to control himself. MC is absolutely insane. After saying that he needed the curtain and everything to concentrate because seeing the princess's body would be too much for his teenage desires, Alchemist Zhang was completely lost, not understanding anything. The legend, MC, could no longer bear arguing with them and stated that the princess's situation was critical, ordering everyone out of the room. He sat in the lotus position, waiting for the teacher to set everything up, while she kept complaining about whether he could really perform the procedure this way. To shut her up, MC sent one of his fingers flying, perfectly positioning a needle into one of her meridians with millimetric precision, leaving her in shock. He ordered them to stop wasting time. He really needed the setup because his statement that he wouldn't be able to concentrate if he had to see the princess's body was genuine. The teacher told the blonde to ignore him and hold the princess in place. The blonde took on the task with such determination it seemed like something very serious was about to happen. But to everyone's surprise, MC simply signaled with his finger, and all the needles flew with incredible precision into the princess. The teacher was left baffled. What kind of absurdity was this? How was he able to do such a thing? Outside the room, the two old alchemists and MC's servant were discussing all sorts of nonsense when MC suddenly opened the door and came out stretching, as if he had just woken up from a nap, not participated in a life-saving operation for the princess of the city. The alchemist immediately shouted, accusing him of stalling and not even starting the procedure yet. But MC covered his ears with a mocking expression and said, "I'm already done." Of course, like frogs unaware of the world beyond their little pond, no one believed it. Even MC's servant thought he was doomed. Now they were both in deep trouble, about to die alongside MC for messing with the princess's life. Alchemist Zhang prepares to kill MC with a strike, saying that even MC's grandfather couldn't save him now. But the teacher arrives just in time, stating that MC was telling the truth. The princess was fine, leaving everyone in disbelief. The master alchemist of the tower enters to check for himself. Alchemist Zhang asks if the teacher was lying to save her student. Then, the elder who entered shouts that the princess was indeed fine, and everyone looks on with different thoughts, still incredulous. Alchemist Zhang refuses to believe it, while MC's servant breathes a sigh of relief, grateful for the chance to live another day. The alchemist tries to laugh it off, attempting to apologize to MC, but our legendary figurant Slayer begins yelling, saying he only used 18 needles. He adds that it took so long because everyone was bothering him and wouldn't stop insulting him. MC continues, saying that he thought the alchemist was a true professional, but clearly he was mistaken. After all, the royal court was filled with fools. His servant, who thought he was safe just moments ago, was already thinking he would die again. Li Yunxiao was actually lecturing Master Alchemist Zhang. He must have completely lost his mind. In Zhang's mind, memories of his days as an apprentice began to resurface. How many decades had passed since anyone had called him a fool? Strangely, instead of feeling anger like he normally would, he felt a nostalgic warmth like when his master used to scold him. To confirm, he asked the boy in front of him if he had indeed called him a fool, and without a trace of fear, MC responded, "Yes, am I wrong?" The teacher, trying to mediate the situation, steps in and tells MC to apologize to Lord Zhang, but MC simply turns around, walks away, and says that once he masters flying needle acupuncture, the old man can come find him, and then he'll apologize, leaving everyone confused. Why did MC show no fear toward Lord Zhang? The teacher apologizes to the alchemist, but he acknowledges that the boy was right, saying that not only was MC incredibly talented, but now that the princess was fine, everyone could leave. He himself would stay to monitor her condition. At that moment, the teacher grabs MC's two friends and tells them to follow her. In an alleyway in the middle of the city, she tells the two of them to start recounting all of Li Yunxiao's feats, his talent for alchemy, his strength, his monstrous cultivation speed. All of this could have gone unnoticed by everyone if he had kept a low profile, but his two best friends would know everything. They were never left in the dark like this. The two didn't know what to say. MC had always been a burden, someone they constantly had to protect, but suddenly, as if he had become a different person. He showed so much that left them in the dust. He had become someone to admire and follow. The teacher then begins thinking outside the box and says that, given all this, MC probably did all of it because he needed to remain unnoticed. And now, having emerged as a brilliant, strong star, it was because he had completed all the preparations for his rise. Something very big was about to happen in the Li family of Tianshui. They continued discussing how the Li family had fallen into the hands of the effeminate Li, and how something huge was about to happen that would involve the entire nation. She told them to be prepared. The boys say that as long as their friend is involved, they will stand by his side no matter what. They then ask the teacher whose side she would take if a great battle broke out. She simply replies that, as commander of the state guardians, she only obeys His Majesty, the king, leaving the two boys very disappointed with her answer. But she adds that Li Yunxiao is her student, after all, implying that she would support him above all else. MC has a sudden sneezing fit and is left confused, wondering how his body, which was in perfect condition, could be sneezing like that. Some say it's gossip. At that moment, the blonde girl shouts for MC to wait, and a bit embarrassed, asks if he could take a look at her brother's condition. MC, still picking his nose with a slightly psychotic expression, says, "Looks like I got lucky tonight." As they walk to the blonde's shack, MC gives her 1,000 gold coins for her help with the princess's treatment. The blonde is shocked and says she did nothing to deserve such a sum, but MC replies that if she hadn't been there, he would have had to undress the delicious princess himself and would have lost focus. In the end, she accepts the money but wonders what kind of crazy reasoning that was. It takes them 4 hours to reach her house, and MC comments that now he understands why she managed to open 7 meridians at such a young age. She has to walk 4 hours to school every day. She explains that the price of homes in the capital was too high for her and her brother. When her father was still alive, her family lived comfortably in the city. He was a captain of the guard, but 3 years ago, he was killed in action. Since then, with a little compensation money, she and her brother had to move to the countryside. MC enters to check on her brother, who was in critical condition. He had been like this for 5 months, and during that time, she took on any job she could find to try to afford a doctor to treat him. That's how she ended up involved in the scheme to deceive MC. He tells her that now is not the time to talk about the past, and that he'll first check on the boy to figure out what's going on. As he's about to explain, the blonde starts crying, saying that she had tried everything, and the only thing that still worked was the medicine the chubby guy sold her. But even that wasn't effective anymore. She was desperate and threw herself into the chest of our protagonist. Of course, the legend, MC, says that everything will be fine now that he's here, and even if her brother wanted to die, he would need MC's permission, and naturally, he wouldn't allow it. She asks if he already knows what's wrong with her brother, and MC tells her that the boy has the body of the venom of heaven and earth, leaving the girl terrified by the ominous name and asking if he could cure it. MC simply says no to the girl's question, sending her into despair as she asks how he could say that when he promised not to let her brother die. She insists that if he could cure her brother, she would be willing to do anything he asked. He pushes the girl away and says she shouldn't tempt him into committing a crime, if you know what he means. But she keeps begging him to save her brother. Realizing she misunderstood, he starts explaining that the body of the venom of heaven and earth isn't a disease. In the world, there are many different types of physiques, each with its own unique traits. Still not quite understanding, the girl asks if now that they know the type of illness her brother has, could they cure him? MC stops explaining and instead begins using his magic with a needle. He targets several points on the boy's body, causing all the accumulated venom, which the boy couldn't control, to leave his body. MC then uses an energy fusion technique to absorb it into his own body. The girl believes MC is sacrificing himself to help her brother, and seeing that he's doing it without any ulterior motives, she starts to fall for him. Little does she know, the venom in her brother's body is a rare type of celestial energy that's hard to come by, and will greatly boost MC's cultivation. But let's stick with her version of the story, where the prince is sacrificing himself for his beloved. It's much more romantic. As MC absorbs the energy, the boy wakes up, and his sister tells him to thank Li Yunxiao for saving his life. But MC becomes irritated and asks the boy why the toxicity in his body is so weak. Next time, he better accumulate much more of the venom of heaven and earth. The boy, confused, tells his sister that her friend is really funny, but MC says the kid is lucky, and if he bows to him 3 times, he will accept him as a disciple. The boy replies that if he were to have a master, it would be someone amazing and powerful, on the level of a state guardian. In the end, after taking a solid smack from his sister on the head, the boy finally agrees to become the disciple of the legendary Li Yunxiao. MC accepts his vow and says he will teach the boy the technique of the celestial tyrant, which suits his physique perfectly. But the stubborn kid insists he only only wants to learn strong techniques like the sneaky tiger. For those who don't remember, that's the technique used by the minor character from the gravity room who got beaten by MC. His sister smacks him on the head again, telling him he should learn whatever the young master tells him, though she also thought the sovereign technique was for beginners, giving MC a strong psychological blow from the stupidity of the two siblings. Losing his patience, MC says he knows nothing about weak techniques like sneaky tiger. The boy must focus on what he's told, and controlling the toxicity of his body would be child's play. After teaching the basics and telling the boy to train diligently day and night, MC says for now he should focus on entering the first original realm, and then he'll teach him martial techniques. Frustrated once again by the boy's foolishness and his constant mention of that tiger technique, MC changes focus to some minerals piled in the corner of the room. These were the minerals the boy used to collect before he got sick, trying to make some money. They had some energy that MC could sense from afar, and upon closer inspection, he discovered that within the minerals was the purple sunstone, a 5th grade material used to build gravitational matrices. The boy immediately gets excited, realizing these were the same stones used to build gravity training rooms, which must be worth a fortune. MC agrees, saying that even with so many impurities, they were indeed valuable. He promptly takes them all for himself. The boy, shocked, says MC shouldn't steal from his own disciple. MC just laughs with a sly expression and says he's merely holding on to them and will return them at the right time. He reminds the boy to train properly and accumulate lots of venom for next time before leaving. MC is overjoyed. Today, he gained a disciple with the body of the venom of heaven and earth. With time and proper training, the boy could become his most promising disciple across both of his lives. Now, what he lacked was refining a Chuan weapon, and luckily, he had also gotten his hands on a 5th grade material like the purple sunstone. Now he could forge an even better weapon. He then heads toward the Alchemist Association, where, at that moment, the two masters were gathered, holding a sword and agreeing that they needed to find Li Yunxiao. When MC arrives at the alchemy tower, the receptionist informs him that the president of the tower and Lord Zhang were looking for him. She accompanies him to the room, wondering what was going on while thinking that anyone in the world would be thrilled to have two such important figures waiting for them. When the girl introduces MC and leaves, he casually walks in without explanation, sits in the central chair like a king, and asks what they wanted. The two look at each other, resigned to the situation. Lord Zhang then explains that this was an invitation to a banquet hosted by the ministers, meant to celebrate Li Yunxiao, his teacher, advancing as an alchemist, and the recovery of the princess. The invitation was for 6 people, including him. MC pulls a dumbfounded face and says, "Is that all you called me for?" Alchemist Zhang starts laughing and asks if he's a disciple of Lord Yangdi, and MC just casually denies it, as if it were the simplest thing in the world. At this point, Lord Zhang falls into shock, unable to believe how MC knew the floating life seal and the golden needle acupuncture technique he used. MC doesn't bother answering, simply gets up and says, "If there's nothing else, I'm leaving." Lord Zhang was furious. No one had ever dared to embarrass him like that. But the other master of the tower simply asked MC to wait for a moment, and told him to take a look at the 2 gifts they had prepared for him for saving the princess. One was the badge of a 2nd grade alchemist. The golden needle technique he demonstrated was far beyond the level of a 2nd grade alchemist, but the master could only authorize a 2nd grade badge and apologized for it. MC just laughed and said, "No, this is pretty cool." He added that the monthly payment was good enough for him. Then the master asked MC to look inside the other box, which contained a sword, and asked what he thought of it. This sword belonged to Lord Zhang. He was quite reluctant to part with it, but said that to learn golden cultivation, he was willing to give it up. MC took the sword, a masterpiece, and commented that it had many imperfections, but considering Lord Zhang's abilities as a 3rd grade alchemist, it was hard to believe he could refine anything better. Both men were shocked when MC said, "Many imperfections." The way MC spoke was insane. How could he dare to say that the sword had many flaws? MC looked at them and said, "You don't believe me?" He then began listing all the ingredients, the refining method, and the mistakes made during the process, leaving both masters completely astounded. They had never thought about it that way and had only been focused on improving the grade of the weapon, not the quality of the refinement. At that moment, MC appeared like a god of alchemy. He began explaining that the right refining techniques and fire control were crucial. A strong flame wasn't always the best, and the image of a sovereign seemed to stand behind him. The sword Lord Zhang had always been proud of was now, in MC's eyes, nothing more than scrap. Literally, They looked at MC and saw only a shadow so vast they couldn't hope to reach it, as if they needed to climb to the heavens. After MC revealed the gap between a god of alchemy and mere mortals, they both asked if he could demonstrate how to refine a high-quality Xian weapon. MC agreed and took his servant, Jiarong, to witness the tower's refinement matrix, which was of high quality and impressed him. MC was amazed, but when the elder reminded him that it was created by Yang, his disciple from his past life, everything made sense, and this excited him. Now, he would be able to forge the weapon while also refining some pills for his new disciple. When the three masters heard this, they were totally dumbfounded. Refining pills and crafting a Chuan weapon simultaneously? Absurd. Jiarong suggested MC focus on the weapon and leave the simple pills to him, but MC replied that perhaps Jiarong wasn't keen on watching him refine. At that moment, Jiarong nearly lost his soul. What alchemist under the heavens would pass up the chance to witness such a process? Watching his young master, who to him was almost like a god in the field of alchemy, was a once-in-a-lifetime experience. He didn't even wait for MC to finish talking. Everything was already prepared before him. The tower master remarked that he had never heard of anyone managing to perform two different tasks simultaneously while refining. And our humble MC replied that not only had the master just heard of it, but he was about to witness it for the first time in history. MC, always humble, added that the master should pay close attention. Alchemist Zhang, who had already been proven wrong by MC more than once, simply told the elder to let the supposed hot-headed teenager do his thing, as he would regret his words later. MC no longer paid attention to the minor characters and simply began the procedure, throwing everything into the cauldron at once. Once again, the three of them didn't even know where they were anymore, completely lost in the refinery, as they witnessed MC refining pills and crafting the weapons simultaneously. MC mixed all the ingredients at once. They started wondering why respectable alchemists were letting a boy play with them. Did he really know anything about alchemy? What kind of joke was this? He had taken advantage of a bit of his knowledge to deceive everyone. The best part was that, despite seeing him perform the most impossible feats in the world, they still acted the same every time he did anything. The level of idiocy among these side characters was over 8,000. Regardless of all the useless thoughts from the onlookers, MC leaped onto the refining matrix and began a precise sequence, activating a unique refining technique that left the cauldron partially active. The tower master and alchemist Zhang, seeing this again, were dumbfounded. How could this be? To them, the matrix was only ever fully active or a failure. There was no middle ground. MC, ever the king of sarcasm, told the two fools to shut up and enjoy the sunshine. He then listed all the features of this auxiliary matrix, known as the deformed spirits, which had unlimited effects when fully activated. That's why it was considered a powerful matrix. But if fully activated, it would require an absurd amount of mental and spiritual power. Who in their right mind would do that just for a simple refinement of first-grade pills and a Xian weapon? MC explained he had only activated 108 effects, which was more than enough. Hearing this, the souls of Alchemist Zhang and the Tower Master were about to leave their bodies. MC's servant could now see the divine path of alchemy, once hazy, now clear and vivid, as the three fools were reminded that, to be a proficient alchemist, one must also master matrix techniques. His servant simply asked if MC was a god. The servant commented that if concentration during cultivation was so crucial, why was MC talking with the three of them? Li Yunxiao replied that it was inevitable. Even though he didn't want to start, he was worried the three idiots wouldn't understand anything, but from now on, he wouldn't say another word. The Tower Master and Alchemist Zhang, realizing they wouldn't get any more answers, smacked the big-mouthed guy hard, leaving him looking quite disheveled. After that, MC didn't speak again, and like a maestro, he merely waved his hand as he refined. The three present had never even imagined that refining could be so beautiful. It looked like a painting. After finishing the pills, he moved on to the weapon. Using his skill, he transformed the iron to its original state. Once again, the three were in shock as MC, using the iron in its purest form, pulled out the purple sunstone and mixed them. At that moment, a thick mist spread throughout the refining room, and MC concluded by condensing the weapon. Seeing that the god of alchemy, after such an unbelievable performance, was quite exhausted, the three scrambled to pamper MC with revitalization pills for his mind and soul. MC took the best one and said he would meditate for a while, using the manifestation as the three just sat there, still thinking that everything they had witnessed might have been some wild dream. It was simply unbelievable. A few minutes later, MC stood up. He hadn't fully recovered 100% of his energy. After all, this kind of refinement drained a lot, especially with those three fools constantly interrupting him with questions. They asked if he had recovered so quickly, and his servant mentioned that it would normally take at least 7 days for recovery after refining. He immediately received a scolding, with MC saying, "How dare trash like you compare yourself to me?" After all the commotion, the three were showering MC with compliments, discussing the sword. Alchemist Zhang, now refusing to accept the title of master before our protagonist, said the sword was simply perfect, a first-grade weapon, as if created by the heavens and earth themselves, with an incredibly dense energy flowing through it. MC explained that, since he used iron in its original state, the sword was now sealed. He mentioned that, in his method, he used the purple sunstone to incorporate 2 gravitational seals into the sword, and when activated, each would exert 10 times the force of gravity, and when combined, they would surpass 100 times. He lamented, while activating the seal to show them that since he had no more purple sunstones, he couldn't create a matrix with a 1,000-fold increase in power. However, he also thought that the sword wouldn't be able to withstand that power because it was just a simple first-grade Xian weapon. Once again, the 2 elders were astonished. 3 matrices, 3 states of release. What kind of absurd concept was this? Old Zhang, ever shameless, asked if MC would leave the sword with them for a few days so they could conduct research on it and improve their own skills. The king of sarcasm, MC, replied that if he left his sword with 3 pieces of trash like them, what weapon would he use? That defective piece of junk they had given him? While the 2 lamented their own insignificance, MC's servant was delighted, thinking that being called trash by a god like his young master was an honor and the purest joy. MC mentioned that he would likely use his sword during cultivation, being under the effect of a gravitational field all day, which would significantly increase his strength. He added that a weapon's ability greatly depends on the one wielding it, not just its grade. Then, without warning, he looked at the sword, swung it, and declared that its name would be Blackglass, causing all 3 present to practically cough up blood in shock. What a horrible name, they thought, but when his servant considered questioning such a ridiculous name, he quickly imagined MC smashing his head multiple times, asking if a piece of trash dared to question his words. The servant wisely decided to keep quiet. The little guy was getting smart. Afterward, to everyone's surprise, or lack thereof, MC checked the pills, and they were all perfect. Of course, the old master of the alchemy tower was amazed, but MC's servant, already accustomed to such feats, remained calm and proud to be his servant, even unlocking a literal proud servant achievement. Since they allowed the protagonist to use the refining room as a thank you, MC offered to spend an hour answering any questions they had. He concluded by saying that, aside from alchemy and martial arts, he was also highly talented in music, matrices, painting, chess, and attracting women, a living legend named Li Yunxiao. The old men were already causing a commotion, practically throwing a party when they heard MC's statement. For a while, MC answered all their questions. They thanked him at the end, and as our MC left, Alchemist Zhang remarked that, a decade ago, he had been fortunate enough to have his questions answered by Yangdi, and although the situation felt somewhat similar, Li Yunxiao carried a unique and superior presence. Later, at Meng Wu's house, MC was waiting, and when she arrived, she was happy to see him but noticed his unhappy expression. She asked what was wrong, and with a displeased look, he asked her where Meng Bai, his disciple, was. She replied that as soon as he recovered, he followed his uncle, who lived next door, to work in the mines. At that moment, the boy happily arrived, greeting both of them, and mentioned that he had gathered a lot of raw ores. But MC didn't care about that junk and immediately slapped him, ordering him to kneel and apologize. The boy stood up, angry, asking who he was to hit someone, and MC reminded him that he was his master. He had advised the boy to practice the technique diligently, but the boy had disobeyed. Meng Bai argued that as the man of the house, he had to earn money and not leave everything to his sister. Despite his sister telling him to shut up and apologize to his master, the boy refused, saying a master wouldn't hit a disciple for no reason and that someone who hadn't taught him anything useful had no right to call himself his master. MC simply called him ungrateful. With a simple gesture, he injured the boy and forced him to kneel. The boy cried out, saying he would never obey, claiming that since he was only a year younger than Li Yunxiao, he would soon surpass him, and that having him as a master was only holding him back. He told MC that if he wanted, he should kill him now. This was a grave mistake on the boy's part, as MC coldly replied that killing a useless disciple like him was easy. The hard part was letting him live to bring disgrace to his name. Meng Wu, who was crying and knew the young master would indeed kill her brother, tried to intervene. She told her brother that if he he didn't apologize to his master, she would no longer consider him her brother. At that moment, Uncle Li arrived, asking what was happening. The boy claimed that MC had forced him to accept him as a master and was now threatening his life. Uncle Li, seeing that MC was strong and talented, should have realized that he was the protagonist of the story and walked away. But like all side characters, he lacked intelligence. He remarked that being controlling was a big mistake for someone so young. MC asked who he was to think he had the right to interfere in the lesson he was teaching his rebellious disciple. Meng Wu tried to stop the old man from being massacred, but the side character, as usual, was dumber than a rock and said a young boy like MC shouldn't be trying to have a disciple. It seemed he would have to teach MC a lesson. The ungrateful brat added fuel to the fire, saying he preferred having his uncle as his master rather than anyone else, boosting the old man's ego. The old man said he would accept the boy as his disciple and, once the boy grew stronger, they would form a mercenary group and make lots of money. But first, he had to resolve this situation. Meng Wu tried again to stop him from walking the path to certain death, but the old man boldly assured her he wouldn't hurt the boy too much. Li Yunxiao responded that he wouldn't even use his energy or martial techniques to deal with trash like the old man, and that if he lost, he would kneel and lick his boots. Even Meng Wu was surprised by his words, and the old man, lost in the fight, thought the boy was arrogant. He charged at MC, shouting that a boy so innocent couldn't know how vast the sky was, attempting to strike with his technique. Universal fist suppressing soul expansion. However, the old man, full of himself, coughed up blood, terrifying the siblings, and like a dog, he began obeying MC, kneeling to lick his shoes. But trash like him wasn't even qualified for that, and MC promptly kicked him in the face. Seeing his uncle, who seemed so strong, defeated so easily, the boy was completely desperate. To make matters worse, MC approached him and said, "Didn't you want to die? Get ready, it's your turn now." Meng Wu panicked, begged forgiveness for her brother, saying that if someone needed to be punished, it should be her for being negligent in raising her brother, who didn't understand how the world worked. MC sighed, realizing that the boy indeed had a promising future, but he had lost interest in him. He began to leave. Naturally, now that the boy realized the greatness of the protagonist, he crawled and begged MC to teach him martial arts. But MC coldly replied that he was no longer interested in having pathetic disciples like him. Meng Wu also pleaded, saying that from now on, she wouldn't let her brother go to the mines and would focus entirely on cultivating. But the boy interrupts her and says that he won't allow his sister to handle everything by herself. He will continue mining but will also give 100% of his effort into cultivating. MC then says that if the boy manages to open 7 of his chakras and enter the origin realm within 5 days, he can remain his disciple. Otherwise, it would be better for him to never show up in his sight again. His sister, realizing that such a condition was nearly impossible, tries to convince MC otherwise, but the boy shouts that it doesn't matter if it's just 5 days. If his master said it, he must be able to do it. MC leaves, saying he will return in 5 days to check the boy's progress. He rents a hotel room to cultivate, using black glass with the gravity increased tenfold. Meanwhile, the city is in an uproar because, after decades, the master of the tower and the imperial alchemist John have announced that they are entering complete isolated cultivation. 5 days later, MC leaves the hotel room, having broken through another cultivation level as if it were the simplest thing in the world, and heads to the sibling's house. When he enters, he finds the girl in distress and her brother completely consumed by the venom in his body while desperately trying to break through the 7th layer. Once again, to the surprise of no one, he manages to break through to a 1-star martial warrior. His sister, distracted, bumps into MC just as she was about to leave to search for him. MC praises his disciple for his hard work and tells him to sit down so he can absorb the venom from his body. After all, everyone knows that Li Yunxiao only accepted the boy as his disciple because the venom in his body was essentially a rare form of celestial energy. The boy, noticing that after having the venom absorbed, his strength also disappeared, questions MC about it, and MC gives him a lesson on the different types of physiques in the world and how he would become nearly invincible once he reaches a considerable level of cultivation where he can control the venom in his body. The boy is happy but realizes that the venom in his body, contrary to what he always thought, is actually a great thing. MC replies that obviously it was a good thing. Why else would he absorb the venom if it wasn't? And the boy, now seeming to use his brain, says that from the start, his master had been using him, realizing the whole scheme of MC. Noticing that he had spoken too much, MC quickly pulls out some pills and hands them to the boy to shift the focus of the conversation. He also gives him an impact pill to help him advance. The girl is overjoyed, knowing that even the simplest of these pills would cost thousands of gold pieces each. MC finds himself thinking that, in his past life, any pill he made was practically priceless, worth more than even the most expensive material. materials. After MC hands the pills to the siblings to distract them from the fact that he was using the boy's venom as a power source for his cultivation, their uncle arrives to take the boy to the mines. Upon seeing MC, the uncle nearly soils himself, not even noticing that the boy had become a martial warrior. MC calls him over and asks for his name, and the man has the audacity to say that MC can call him Uncle Le, just like everyone else does. Naturally, our formidable protagonist tells him that he must have a death wish, asking to be called Uncle. The man trembles and quickly changes his tune, saying that MC can call him Li Daem instead. This time, MC wasn't in the mood to beat up another side character. He just wanted to hire the guy for some mining work, offering him a salary of 500 gold coins. As the man happily leaves with his new job, MC tells the siblings that they're going to buy better clothes because they will be attending the king's banquet. The blonde sister starts hopping from shop to shop, trying everything on, and MC quickly comes up with an excuse to leave them alone, running off and saying he'll meet them at night, leaving his poor disciple in the hands of the beast. While walking down the street, enjoying some food alone, MC notices someone sneaking behind him, and then attempting to flee quickly. MC simply throws the toothpick he was holding, hitting the guy, who thought he was already far enough to be safe. The man tries to block it, but the toothpick pierces his hand, leaving him in shock at the strength behind the throw. Without wasting time, MC grabs the man and flies off with him to a more secluded place, leaving the onlookers stunned by the swift action. In an alley, it's revealed that the man was just a guard serving the fourth master of the Li family. He had come to warn MC not to mess with Li at the banquet because he essentially held all the power of the family in his hands. But MC replies that if the mere slave, who had risen through the ranks and reached the top, dared to think of challenging him, he would crush him like any other insect. The man tries to argue that Li had a lot of strong people supporting him, and MC agrees, saying that it's likely that even his majesty might be backing him. After all, the army was mostly made up of soldiers from the Li family, and the king wouldn't let just anyone control such a powerful family. MC goes on to mention other potential allies, like the Lan family, but to our eternal sovereign, none of this posed any real obstacle. As the man listens to all of this, he grows more and more astonished, realizing how such a genius like MC, once thought to be trash, had managed to stay hidden and unnoticed for so long. In the end, MC just tells the guy to disappear because he doesn't care about their plans and has no interest in participating in such a useless scheme. However, if Li doesn't watch his step, or if the king tires of his role, our protagonist wouldn't hesitate to replace him with people he deems more capable. Hearing this, the guy is so shocked that he forgets to wipe his nose, completely terrified. When night falls, the royal banquet is packed with important figures from all over. One of MC's friends goes to greet him with a punch on the shoulder, but is shocked when he almost breaks his hand and asks what had happened to this monster's body. Being a good friend, MC ignores their silly remarks and hands them 2 impact pills as well, since they both urgently needed to advance their cultivation. While they're talking, the blonde girl shows up, looking flawless, and calls MC. His friends, upon seeing this, immediately start teasing him, saying it now made sense why he disappeared over the past few days. They thought he was chasing after a girl. MC ignores their teasing again and introduces the siblings, saying the boy is his new disciple. But his friends keep joking, saying he's such a ladies' man that he even took the boy as a disciple just to get closer to his sister. This makes the boy traumatized, asking if all the help he received was just a way to get to his sister. His sister quickly slaps him on the head to stop him from talking nonsense. When MC and his guests arrive at the banquet area, many important figures are already present. Li, trying to appear superior as the current head of the Li family, tells MC to sit with his family, as it wasn't necessary to occupy a different seat. Of course, our figurine smasher, MC, pretends not to hear and makes a joke to the blonde girl about uptight people with their noses in the air, making everyone laugh as if there was no tomorrow, except Li, who nearly chokes on his drink. But he's irrelevant. Even though Li is irrelevant to us, one of the Li family guards jumps to attack MC under the pretext of disrespecting the current head of the family. MC throws his drink into the air so as not to spill a drop, hits the figurine, asking if he knows who he's dealing with, and catches the drink again as if nothing had happened. Then, he looks at Li and says that, with his excellent work, Li even managed to rise from a slave, receive the Li family name, and become the current head. But Li Yunxiao, MC, needed to make sure his dogs were kept in line and added, "Isn't that right, my slave number 8527? Leaving Li humiliated and the other guests in disbelief over what had just happened. Even after this free humiliation, Li didn't want to be further embarrassed and kept shouting, but MC, ever the elegant one, simply said that this was His Majesty's banquet, and he didn't want to break all the bones of his misbehaving dog. Hearing this, Li charges at him, but the red-haired commander, one of the strongest on the continent, just points a finger at him and says that's enough. After putting the figurine in his place, the red-haired commander watches MC, wondering how he could have reached such a level of martial arts mastery when even he himself couldn't. MC's moves were flawless, something even the commander couldn't achieve. At that moment, the king arrives, and with him come the two girls from MC's group. While everyone else bows, MC simply makes a peace sign. The king announces that this party is to celebrate the red-haired guardian becoming an alchemist and his daughter recently being cured of her chronic illness. The most important guests start presenting their gifts. One person offers 2 very expensive pearls, while the red-haired commander gives 2 incredibly powerful techniques. When it's the alchemist's turn, he simply gives a pill, claiming it preserves a woman's beauty for a long time. Then comes Li, now acting as the head of the Li family. He says he only has one thing to give the teacher, a hairpin made from a very expensive mineral, pure jade. Everyone is astonished when they hear this, but he doesn't stop there. Speaking of the princess's beauty, he says he found a demon beast egg and gives it to her. Everyone is left in disbelief. Demon beast eggs are extremely valuable because demon beasts are very proud and rarely mate. The only way to get one, after years of trying to tame a beast, is to take its egg and raise it from a young age. But these eggs are extremely difficult to find, so gifting one is like throwing money away. Even the red-haired commander, who is very wealthy, comments that today's kids spend too much money just to impress women. But while everyone is still in shock, someone pipes up. It's really a demon beast egg, very important and expensive. But why would the princess want a dead demon beast egg? Is she supposed to eat it? And everyone turned to see who was speaking. And of course, it was our boy, MC. Li started shouting desperately, saying he had spent so much money that he could have bought MC 1,000 times over. But MC replied that the princess would be disappointed after taking care of the egg for months only to find out it was rotten. The king, seeing this, said that since MC had saved the princess, he would let it slide this time, but warned that he must choose his words carefully. Even as a young man, he needed to take responsibility for saying something like that. MC responded, saying that even if he explained, no one would understand. But it didn't matter, he didn't care. At that moment, another man arrived, offering a very valuable gift to both women. To the princess, he gave 10 dragon stones, which weren't individually expensive but were incredibly valuable together. To our red-headed teacher, he gave primordial stones to help her advance in her cultivation. Each primordial stone was worth about the same as a demon beast egg, just to give you an idea of how much this guy spent trying to impress our redhead. But as we know, she's already taken. Tough luck. He had confessed to the redhead many times before, but she always turned him down. So this time, he prepared this grand gift for her. He was a prince aiming to ascend to emperor status, and with her help, now that she was an alchemist, he believed she would make him much stronger. He thought that with these stones, she could become an incredibly powerful cultivator, helping him achieve his goal. But our redhead simply responded that such an expensive and priceless gift she would never use, rejecting him. Seeing that he was about to be rejected once again, the foolish prince rushed forward with the primordial stones in hand and, in front of all the kingdom's important figures, officially proposed to her. Annoyed, she told him to get a grip, warning that if he crossed the line again, she wouldn't be responsible for her actions. He tried to humiliate himself further, but she wouldn't allow it, telling him to mind his manners. Then he asked if she was already in love and, if so, demanded to know who the man was, as he wanted to fight him, convinced that no one in the kingdom was worthy of her but him. At that moment, the redhead paused, looked at him, and began to tell a story from 15 years ago at the Celestial Night Palace. Her master had returned from the base of the mountain. The once kind, caring, and gentle master was different now, harsher, crueler, and always taking her frustrations out on our favorite redhead. She would often hear her master crying and mentioning a name. She had always wanted to find out who this man was so she could give him a beating for making her master feel that way. Later on, overhearing her master crying again, she finally discovered the name of the man, Gu Feiyang. For those who don't remember, that was MC before he reincarnated. One day at the palace, her master gathered several martial sovereigns. They all discussed the price for this mission she was trying to set them on. In the end, they all agreed to join the fight, though they still doubted whether Gu Feiyang would dare show up. Many of them said that as soon as he appeared, they would face and defeat the supposed strongest martial sovereign. Then one of them asked the woman if Gu Feiyang would really show up or if he would seek help, considering that there were many sovereigns present and no one would be foolish enough to challenge them all at once. There were 10 martial sovereigns in total, and they were apprehensive, thinking that Gu Feiyang might gather 9 others to make it a 10 versus 10 fight. One cocky guy said that even if it were a 10 versus 10. He was sure he could defeat Gu Feiyang. Just leave it to him. The woman didn't waste any time and said she was certain that Gu Feiyang wouldn't ask for help and wouldn't fail to show up. So the white-haired guy looked at her and asked how she could be so sure Gu Feiyang would come. At that moment, she simply said, "I know he'll show up because he's already here." Seeing no one arrive after the woman spoke, the guy said her guess was wrong, and she calmly responded that it wasn't a guess. He really had arrived. "Did you not notice the winds getting stronger?" The other sovereigns dismissed it, saying they were on a snowy peak, so of course there would be winds. But at that moment, a powerful gust of wind swept through the room, unsettling everyone. When the 10 martial sovereigns stepped outside to see MC, they saw a massive hand of wind in the sky. Then MC began to recite his technique. "The winds and clouds move because of me. Great palm of the winds." One of the men began to panic, shouting, "What kind of power is this?" Seeing that none of them alone could compare to MC's power, the 10 of them unleashed their techniques to counter MC's attack. But it was all in vain. Even with all their strength and their best techniques, they were crushed like insects, as they thought, "We are martial sovereigns. How can there be such a difference in power?" The woman, who was the redhead's master, simply said, "Of course there's such a difference. After all, he is the most handsome and magnificent." At that moment, MC descended the cloud staircase as if he were a god, folks. After humiliating all the so-called powerful martial sovereigns with a single strike, our MC told the woman that she should understand that she had already lost this battle long ago. The 10 ants she had gathered couldn't land even a single hit on him. How would she? But it was clear that she already knew this because she said that her intention in gathering all those fools was only to force him to use up as much ki as possible, adding that one of them would die on that fateful day. The woman's goal was to force MC to the peak because she had already prepared a battle formation with her entire sect. Even though she was unworthy, she would use the powerful formation that had been in her sect for millennia to take his life. This formation, in simple terms, used its matrices to capture and channel the power of the stars into her sword, making her, on that snowy peak, basically a goddess. And with that power, according to her, it didn't matter how strong Gu Feiyang was, he would be defeated today. But that's just according to her, because our MC simply said that was what she thought. Even if she used the power of infinite stars, he would defeat her with a single blow, and used his technique Starlight Sword Strike, Omniscient Vision. However, the goddess, beautiful as ever, replied that no male god could stop her sword that night, and she used her Starlight Night Sword technique. Witnessing this incredible scene, our little redhead, back then, couldn't handle the overwhelming pressure, and the last thing she remembered before passing out was the clear vision of the handsome man, with cold, sovereign, almost unreachable eyes. When she woke up, she discovered that her master had been defeated, and the news that 10 martial sovereigns and an entire sect had united and been defeated by Gu Feiyang with just one strike spread across the continent, further elevating his status. But shortly after, news of his death shook the world, affecting the red-haired teacher even more, as she couldn't believe that anything in the world could defeat him. Then she arrived in Tianshui and started teaching at the academy because it was the only place that had such a well-detailed statue of the man who had left such a deep mark on her. After this flashback, the prince continued to ask for the name of the man she loved, but she only replied that he was already dead. The prince, overjoyed to hear this, said that since that was the case, all he had to do was accomplish what this man had done to prove he was also worthy of winning her heart. She said that, since he thought that way, he should listen carefully. At the divine edge of the sea, Gu Feiyang refined a super weapon capable of destroying stars. He became known as the youngest and most remarkable elder of the 9th Grade Alchemist Association. He wiped out the defenses of Crimson City with just one blow, destroying everything completely, becoming one of the 3 most powerful on the continent. In the western seas, he helped a friend in a massacre that split 9 kilometers of ocean water. In the sacred lands, he subdued them alone, thus reaching 3rd place in the winds and clouds ranking of heaven and earth, earning the title of Lord Milita. On the snowy peak, he walked on clouds and defeated 10 martial sovereigns with a single strike. Even the most beautiful and divine woman in the world, the lady of the celestial night palace, Gu Hongwan, who many said was untouchable due to her goddess-like beauty, couldn't resist and became madly in love with him. The red-haired teacher finished by saying, almost mockingly, that there was much more to tell about him. But even with just these few feats, if the prince could accomplish even 1/100th of what he did, she would marry him, leaving the prince with a colossal look of disbelief. Who in the world didn't know the legend of the martial god Gu Feiyang? She said she was very tired now and would be leaving the banquet. Everyone who heard these feats was in disbelief, including our MC. The king, trying to calm things down, said that she wasn't feeling well and that the banquet should continue. The other prince felt relieved. If the teacher had accepted to marry his brother, he would have gained a very strong alchemist and the support of many powers in the city. It would have been a major blow to his own ambitions of becoming becoming king. Pushing these thoughts aside, he also presented his gift, which wasn't even mentioned, and everyone returned to happily celebrating the banquet. MC's disciple said he had thought about it, but still didn't know who the red-haired beauty was referring to. Maybe it was Lord Yangdi, but his sister corrected him, saying it was actually Yangdi's master, the person represented by the statue at the academy, leaving her brother incredulous. He mentioned that he had seen the statue but didn't think the guy was handsome at all and even mocked him, saying that if he had refused the most beautiful woman in the world, he must have been an idiot. This made MC choke on his drink, saying that the boy was too young and didn't understand anything, having no experience in love. The boy retorted, "I don't understand love, but from what I heard, either he's a complete idiot or he likes men," causing his friends to burst into laughter, agreeing that the man must have liked men for refusing the beautiful woman known as the goddess of the celestial night palace. MC tried to make them stop, saying they should respect the ancestors of the martial path, but the boy continued, "Oh, get out of here with that respect. Just because he was a little stronger doesn't mean he wasn't an idiot for turning down that woman." His friend fully agreed, saying that the guy should die 1,000 times for rejecting her and making the red-haired teacher fall in love with him. At this moment, the princess asked MC if he had brought her any gifts. MC simply muttered under his breath, "Why do I have to bring a gift to a dinner that's basically for saving your life? And I was the one who saved you too." But then, Li mocked him, saying, "Did someone come to the banquet just to eat for free? Eat for free? Is this guy serious?" His disciple encouraged him, "Show them the gift you brought. It's going to blow everyone's mind." The princess became even more excited, saying, "Yes, let me see the gift." The king tried to calm things down, saying the banquet was to celebrate that MC saved the princess and not for her to demand gifts, but she pouted and insisted she still wanted a gift from him. MC replied that he didn't actually bring anything, but he could sing a song and play for her to help her stay healthy and full of energy. Li couldn't help himself and sneered, calling MC a broke fool. "The king and princess have the best musicians in the continent. Why would they want to listen to you play? You'd better leave and stop embarrassing the Li family." With his usual mockery, MC didn't even call him by name, saying, "Eighth tent, it's your turn to speak, you arrogant slave." The princess, watching this scene, said she would love to hear him play. However, everyone else shared Li Yi's sentiments, making mocking faces, thinking that this kid was about to ruin the banquet by playing instead of staying quiet. Despite the looks, since he had saved the princess, they set up a scene for him to play, using something resembling a harp. When everything was ready, the king remarked that his grandfather and father had been more focused on martial arts and hadn't expected their descendant to have musical talent. As he was speaking, MC began to play, leaving everyone stunned. Li Yunxiao radiated the aura of a grandmaster so talented it was impressive. At that moment, the image of the former martial sovereign Gu Feiyang appeared in MC's shadow. He radiated an incredible melody while playing, so powerful that everything around him seemed to come to life, as if nature itself responded. His disciple, the blonde girl, and even the princess were amazed. This was the Ganging Odyssey. He appeared like a god playing, and for the first time, the princess truly opened up like a blooming flower. But as all good things come to an end, just as he was finishing his performance, a servant rushed in, shouting, "Your Majesty, Your Majesty, all the flowers in the garden have suddenly bloomed," leaving everyone in shock. Why would something like that happen during the banquet? Of course, it was thanks to MC's song technique. The spring winds blew through the grove like a symphony, causing the flowers to blossom. The two princes and the princess went to admire the now magnificent garden, commenting on how it was a shame that the red-haired teacher had left early and couldn't witness it too. At this point, the red-bearded old master, a well-known martial artist, remarked that it was widely known that Gu Feiyang and Gu Yangdi first met when he played the Odyssey in the violet bamboo forest on the island of Qinggu. It had been winter then, snowing, but that divine peace awakened the god of flowers, causing the flowers to bloom. He commented that he never expected to witness something said to exist only in stories, happening today. Then, at that moment, the image of a goddess appeared, saying, "I danced for someone, and that someone crossed the heavens to see me." The king couldn't help himself and started clapping, leading the applause for MC, saying that although he had lived many years, this was the first time in his life he had heard such a magnificent piece. Everyone who had mocked, even Li, felt embarrassed and began to clap as well. Then, Li told the princess that, even though it was a beautiful piece, MC hadn't spent a single coin, nothing compared to his demon beast egg. The princess simply retorted, saying that he had no culture. At that moment, The Red Colonel interrupted, saying that the gift MC had given today was far more precious than the demon beast egg Li mentioned. He would be willing to pay anything to hear it again, catching Li by surprise. How could he say such a thing? If he wanted to hear it again, he could just ask the boy to play it once more. But MC interrupted, explaining that to play a celestial piece, the time of day, the geographical location, and the people present had to be just right. In the past, the most beautiful woman on earth had been in the purple bamboo forest. Today, the flower god appeared because of Princess Rishua's presence in the palace. MC laughed and, in his usual mocking way, said, "Of course, you wouldn't know something like that, you uncultured slave. Would you, slave 8? He then pointed at Li and added, "You must not have had the time to learn before, so you should work harder to learn in the future." But by this time, the princess wasn't even listening anymore, completely smitten by his comparison of her to Chu Hongyan, the most beautiful woman on earth. Trying to save face, Li claimed he hadn't just prepared gifts for the teacher and Princess Rishua, but he had also brought a simple gift for the commander. The commander tried to refuse, saying he didn't deserve it and had done nothing to merit a gift, but Li insisted. He mentioned that years ago, while fighting the martial king of the land of 1,000 battles, the commander had suffered an internal injury that he had been unable to heal. Li boasted that he was fortunate enough to obtain a Dragon Eye Clarity pill and would like to present it to the commander, leaving him in shock. A 6th grade medicine, the Dragon Eye Clarity pill. Li smugly ordered the alchemist to bring the pill, saying it wouldn't just heal the commander's injuries, but would also enhance his cultivation. Both the king and the commander were stunned. The commander had tried everything to heal, but ordinary medicines had no effect, and his cultivation was declining. The king had even sent people far and wide to seek out alchemists, knowing that the commander was the kingdom's strongest martial artist, and if he perished, the kingdom would be left defenseless. At that moment, the king stood up and declared that Li had made a great contribution to the nation. Today, no matter what reward he requested, the king would grant it. And Li, with a smirk that showed he had planned this all along, asked for Princess Rishua's hand in marriage. Princess Rishua was, of course, in shock, and after collecting herself, she screamed at Li to know his place and begged her father not to agree. No matter what, the princess, seeing her father stay silent, asked if he was really going to allow this. But he just sighed and told her not to be stubborn. Li had contributed so much today, and the king would be relieved to see his daughter marry him. He truly believed in Li's feelings for Rishua. Otherwise, why would he have gone to such lengths to obtain a precious demon egg for her? The king also thought that marrying her to Li would keep control over the Li family, a brilliant strategic move. The princess was ready to resist, but upon hearing this, her world began to crumble. Even her father, who had always supported her, wasn't on her side. In desperation, she threw the egg to the ground, releasing a rotten stench, just as MC had predicted, shocking everyone. At that moment, the princess said, "See, father? It really was rotten. How can he treat me like this? His feelings were never true." Once again, she begged her father to intervene, but the king dismissed it, saying that demon eggs were extremely powerful, and how could anyone determine if it was rotten or not? Li had been deceived as well, and she was even more devastated. Her father was against her, and Li took advantage of the situation, claiming that he had been tricked too and would find the swindler to make them suffer an agonizing death. Hearing this, the king declared that even if Li had been deceived, it didn't invalidate all his contributions. Today, he would decree the marriage of, but before he could finish, our hero, MC, like a knight arriving in the final hour, interrupted and protested. He stated that the Dragon Eye Clarity pill was fake, catching everyone by surprise. All eyes turned to Li, for this was a capital crime. Presenting a fake pill before His Majesty and the court officials was a grave offense, punishable by death, especially if it were given to the kingdom's strongest commander. The princess, stammering, realized she still had a chance and immediately cried out to her father that the pill must indeed be fake, urging him to execute the liar. Nervously, Li claimed he had spent a fortune to acquire the pill from an alchemist, accusing MC of spouting nonsense again with ill intentions. But MC pressed on, saying it was a lie, just as he had proven the egg to be rotten. Li remembered this, and the king, no fool, seeing the rotten egg, asked the alchemist present if the pill was indeed fake. The alchemist responded that it didn't seem to be fake, but since it was such a high-grade pill, he couldn't definitively tell if it was genuine. The commander, ignoring the ongoing conversation, turns to MC and asks how he knew the pill was fake and if he had any proof. MC responds that it would be very easy to determine, explaining that although the pill itself isn't poisonous, it produces a potent venom when it comes into contact with blood and water. Whoever ingested it would die instantly. Upon hearing this, the king shouts, releasing his pressure. Li, realizing he's in trouble, urges the king not to believe the nonsense MC was saying. He insists that if the commander takes the pill, he'll fully recover, and everyone would see that the pill is genuine. MC, with an indifferent expression, says it would be simple to test the pill, instead of having the commander ingest it. Since the life of a martial commander was worth more than the head of a mere servant, they could use another method. Hearing this, Li retorts, asking how they could test the pill without ruining it. He argues that if they lost the 6th grade pill during this test, not even killing MC 1,000 times would cover its cost. But MC, unfazed by the threat, explains that the test is simple. They should place a bit of blood on the pill and give it to a dog. If the dog dies, they'll know right away that the pill is fake and contains a deadly poison. If the dog doesn't die within 10 breaths, they'll know that MC was lying, and they could kill the dog and recover the pill. The king, thinking this plan reasonable, orders the servants to bring a dog, saying it would make it easy to see who's telling the truth. Mocking as always, MC suggests that Li, the servant, provides some of his blood for the test, but Li refuses and tells MC to use his own blood since it was his idea. MC sighs and remarks that he's a very disrespectful slave, so he calls on his disciple, who rushes over at the sound of his name. MC teases Li, saying his disciple was superior to him, making Li want to kill him. For the powerful figures of the continent, witnessing this scene was very satisfying. Finally, things were shifting within the Li family. After a moment, without caring about what others thought, MC orders his disciple to place some blood on the pill. The disciple hesitates, asking why he should use his blood instead of MC's, but quickly receives a hit from MC, who tells him it's just a drop and orders him to obey. After that, MC kicks his disciple aside and explains that the pill secretes a lethal poison as soon as it comes into contact with blood. Just a simple drop of toxin, but enough to kill even a martial king. At that moment, MC had everything meticulously planned. His disciple had highly toxic blood, as everyone already knew, and that's why he devised this plan. A servant then arrives with the dog, and when MC goes to feed the pill to the animal, Li says to stand still and have the servant do it, just in case he tries to pull a trick. Little did he know, the trick had already been played long ago. The dog swallows the pill and acts normal, as if nothing happened, making Li start laughing, saying he had warned everyone that the pill was real. The king looks displeased, and the princess is in shock. No matter what, after this, she couldn't think of a way to prevent Li from surviving after lying in front of her father. Li mocks MC, telling him he's finished for lying in front of the emperor, and that now he'll see the consequences. But as he laughs, he notices everyone is staring at him. When he turns around, the dog is dead, completely poisoned. Li falls to the ground, almost losing control of himself, asking what happened to the dog while he wasn't looking. At that moment, with his back to the king, all Li hears is the king's furious voice asking how he dared lie to him. Li tries to make excuses, saying it's impossible, and that MC must have switched the healthy dog with a poisoned one when no one was watching. But no one believed him anymore. The worst part was, he was actually telling the truth. The king, not listening, orders the guards to take them both away, though in his mind, he was seething. He had gone to great lengths to plant this servant in the Li family and elevate him to leadership, only for this fool to ruin everything. As the guards dragged the two away, coming up with excuses, the king pondered what to do. If he executed these two fools, he'd lose his control over the Li family. Everyone watching was astonished. How could someone dare lie in front of the king and conspire against the strongest commander? Li was just a servant who gained a bit of power and started scheming, but it was clear to everyone that the king must have had some plan for him, as he hadn't sentenced him to immediate execution. The Red Commander says he'll leave the banquet now. After such a disgraceful scene, it seems his injuries were really acting up. The king agrees and tells him to take good care of himself, promising that tomorrow he'll send 100 origin cultivation pills to his mansion. The commander just huffs and walks away. At that moment, MC asks him to wait and offers to take a look at his injuries. The king reminds everyone that MC was the one who healed his daughter with the golden acupuncture technique. Perhaps he could also help the commander. And unlike the other proud figures, the commander simply says, "Why not? You're welcome to take a look." MC uses his divine sense and quickly diagnoses the problem. After a long pause, the commander asks, "Well, have you figured out my problem, little one?" MC simply looks at him with his usual mocking expression and says, "Little one?" The man responds, "What? Even your father is small to me. What are you, if not little?" MC is left speechless. The MC then starts listing all the old man's symptoms, and with every correct guess, the man becomes more excited. "Aha, I understand now." As soon as he says this, the commander can't hold back and nearly throws himself at him, saying that since the MC knows everything, he must have a solution. But suddenly, the man looks at the MC, only to see him disinterestedly eating chicken, as if he doesn't care about anything anymore. The man starts shouting, asking why the MC stopped talking and is just eating. Suddenly, the MC, pretending to be clueless, says, "I'm just a little guy. What contribution could I make for you?" He continues eating and says, while lifting his food, "I was just asking some random questions. I didn't even think I would get everything right. Don't take it to heart. Just pretend I never asked anything and go on your way." Everyone is caught off guard, and the commander is in disbelief. No one had ever shown such arrogance in front of him. The commander tries to explain that he always called the MC's grandfather and father little guy, and what else would he call the boy besides little guy? But the MC simply finishes his drink, places the glass down, and says, "Just call me young Master Yun," causing his friends to almost spit their souls out of their bodies. Not just them, but everyone present. Young Master Yun? Did he dare ask the strongest commander on the continent to call him that? Had he gone crazy, or did he simply want to die? At this point, the bearded commander completely changes his attitude and asks, with a cold voice, "Little guy, do you know who you're talking to? No one has ever dared to call themselves young master in front of me. I'll give you the chance to take back what you said." The MC keeps eating and says that the commander misunderstood. "No one's pressuring you to call me young master. Do whatever you want." If he didn't want to continue the conversation, there was delicious food on the table. Everyone present is incredulous. The commander stands up, looking like a mountain in front of the MC, with a stern expression, but the MC just ignores him and continues drinking. An aura of death emanated from the red-haired commander, but the MC casually comments that he was acting very well, once again leaving everyone shocked, wondering, is this guy asking to die? He just kept provoking the strongest man on the continent more and more. At this point, a side character, whom no one even knows where he came from, appears and says that the boy was too impulsive and inexperienced, and that the bearded man should overlook it in the name of the Li family. But the commander starts laughing heartily and says, "The descendants of the Li family are all the same." He pats the MC on the back, pretending to be friendly, but he used a bit more force, if you know what I mean. He then sits next to the MC and starts eating, saying, "It's a shame I couldn't have such an interesting son like him." He then raises a piece of meat and shouts, "It's done! From now on, I'll call you young Master Yun." And as he says this, everyone wonders when the red-haired commander had become so lenient. Outwardly, he simply asks, "So, young master, can my illness be cured?" But telepathically, he says, "Brat, don't get full of yourself. I'm already treating you with respect." And the MC responds, "Treating me with respect? No way. That pat just now literally broke my rib. I can't say it was unintentional." The red-haired man once again asks if the MC has thought of a treatment, with an expression that says, "So, the pat really worked?" The MC simply replies, "Let's drink first, and we'll talk about the treatment later." The red-haired man agrees. "You're right, let's drink. It's time to get drunk." And he gives another pat that almost kills the MC. After all the commotion between the MC and the red-haired commander, many wonder if the MC is really the person known as the trash of the Li family. The respect he earned today reached another level. Even the guy from the Lan family mentioned that there was someone truly talented in the Li family. The side character, whom the MC humiliated in the arena, thinks he lost simply because he was weak and not because of some dirty trick or cheat, as he had previously thought. The banquet comes to an end as the MC and the red-haired commander say goodbye to everyone. The princess runs up to thank the MC for what he did for her today, but he says it's nothing worth thanking him for, as it's the least a friend like him could do for her. This makes the princess blush, and she runs off. Meanwhile, the red-haired commander tells the MC that he's waiting for news about his injury and whether the MC will be able to heal him. This leaves his friends with their mouths agape. Once again, the MC surpasses expectations. This time, he even earned a favor from the continent's strongest commander. As his friends praise his achievements, they ask how he was able to tell that the pill was fake and poisonous with just a glance. The MC responds as if it's the simplest thing in the world, saying that the pill was real and not poisonous. Hearing this, the three nearly have a heart attack, but the MC says they shouldn't discuss it there and should talk on the way home instead. On the street, the two friends still can't believe the MC had the guts to lie in front of the most powerful people in the country. His disciple, once again with a devastated expression, says that he was used by his master once more. At that moment, someone from inside a hall surrounded by guards says it would be an honor to spend a few hours talking with the MC. However, he declines, saying he's tired and it's already quite late. The man introduces himself as the second prince and recites a poem about friendship that sounds quite homoerotic in an attempt to convince the MC to talk with him, but the MC says he has no interest in spending the night talking alone with a man. At that moment, the curtain opens, revealing some extremely beautiful women, which makes the MC say that now the prince was speaking his language. This leaves the blonde girl and his friend confused. Inside the hall, as the women serve the two of them, they exchange glances. The prince says that his personal guard, who has a type of vision or prophecy power, said that today he would meet a benefactor who would make his life much easier. At that moment, he claps his hands, and a very beautiful woman appears and greets the MC. But at that moment our hero says he's not interested in participating in a coup, which makes the maids serving them quite nervous, fearing they've heard something they shouldn't have. The woman says that if the second prince becomes the sovereign of Tianshui with the MC's help, the Li family will prosper greatly. Currently, the Li family is facing difficulties. Could he really turn his back on his own family? The MC thinks that he initially just wanted to walk the path to the top and regain his strength, leaving everything behind. However, after recently spending time with his friends and others close to him, he started to rethink his values and appreciate the things that were important to the former owner of this body. So he accepts, and they settled the details of the future partnership with the condition that the prince helps the Li family above all. Then, the woman asks what the chances are of curing the red-haired commander's wounds. The prince thinks that no one has been able to cure the commander's wounds so far, and if the MC has even a 10% chance of doing so, his plans will definitely improve. The MC, after finishing his drink as if it were nothing, says he's 100% sure he can cure the commander, which startles both of them, and they ask if he's joking. The MC, not understanding what's going on, asks if they don't actually want him to cure the commander, but it's the opposite. The prince is just shocked by the MC's abilities. The prince becomes extremely happy with the news. With the favor of the red-haired commander, things would become much easier for him, and his long-term plans would materialize easily. However, the MC throws a bucket of cold water on him, explaining that because he's 30 years younger than his brother, it's obvious that his father will choose him as the next king, but he warns the prince that he doesn't have much time and needs to hurry to gain his father's support. As during the banquet, the MC noticed that the old man doesn't have much time left. In addition to his advanced age and frail physique, his father had strange black pigments in his eyes, which are the effects of a slow-acting poison. The woman is alarmed, and the prince says that his older brother must have started making moves, as he's the only one who would have the courage to poison his majesty. The MC points out that if his majesty suddenly dies now, the city would plunge into chaos. It's better for the prince to rush to the palace as soon as possible and try to convince his father to issue an imperial decree making him the next king. The prince asks the MC how he's so sure that his father would support him. The MC says it's a basic deduction. Everyone at the banquet must have noticed it. His older brother may have been recognized as the king's successor long ago due to his contributions in the war, but over the years, the king completely changed his attitude and started treating his brother coldly. Slowly, power and influence were transferred to the second prince, and even the strongest commander, Bain Ho, was reassigned as a guard to protect him, ensuring no one would conspire against him. Even a fool could understand the king's intention to make his second son the next king, but since his older brother had strong military power and influence, the king was trying to suppress him and delay the decree. Even the Li family was on his brother's side. However, as soon as Slave A took control, he suddenly began supporting the second prince. But then the prince starts laughing, and the MC asks if there's something wrong with his reasoning. The prince says that since the MC, who is so intelligent, thinks that way, probably everyone else is thinking the same, but in reality, he's just a pawn on his father's chessboard, a pawn used to fight against his brother. Then he shouts, "Do you really think I wanted to compete for the throne? I was dragged here by my father, and if I don't compete, I'll simply die. Now listen, do you really think he's trying to protect me? He just wants to protect himself." The MC then realizes that he was wrong before. The king loved power, and seeing that his eldest son was gaining authority and strong influence, he decided to support his second son to stop him and delay taking his place. Both the prince and the woman are startled by the MC's intelligence. He really is a genius. By citing a few facts, he already predicted the situation completely. If he had been supporting the second prince from the beginning, the prince might already be well on his way to becoming the next king. The MC says this is a bit troublesome. For a long time, the king has been poisoned, and he could succumb at any moment. Without proper support from his court, it's extremely complicated to go against the older prince. At this moment, the second prince points out that if the MC can heal the red-haired commander, it would be a divine blessing for his cause. The MC then understands the core of the matter. The country's guardians are always under the direct command of the emperor, and healing the red-haired commander's wounds would be a great favor to him, bringing him to their side. The prince jumps up excitedly and declares that if he wins, not only will he ensure the Li family's prosperity, but he will also immediately announce the marriage between himself and Rushua once he ascends the throne. This catches MC off guard, causing him to almost choke on his drink, as he asks what nonsense he was talking about. Hearing MC's question, The prince replies that he understands. MC is a reserved person, even surrounded by feminine beauty. His eyes are only for one. He goes on to say that while his sister is beautiful, she is delicate and needy. At that moment, someone shouts that assassins are attacking. Despite arrows raining down on the hall, the prince remains calm, still drinking. MC remarks that the prince's calm demeanor in the face of enemies is impressive. The prince simply says that with the commander as his guard, there's nothing to fear. But what's truly impressive is that MC, being alone, still remains confident. That's admirable. Understanding the comment, MC jokes about whether the commander was protecting only the prince and not him, asking if he should cry and beg for help. The prince laughs at his joke and assures him that he has survived several assassination attempts, and with the commander present, no harm would come to them. MC laughs back, saying it would be nice if everything were as simple as usual, but he fears this time might be a bit more complicated. At that moment, the woman activates her power, saying there's a problem with teleportation. MC smirks, acknowledging that her technique was truly impressive. The enemy might be strong, but with her around, they could relax. The prince is shocked at how MC, sitting there, had already assessed the enemy's condition. Trying to keep calm, he declares that no assassin will be forgiven. However, at that moment, the commander yells for him to run, and several attacks strike the hall they were in. Despite a barrier being hastily raised, it is destroyed, hitting the hall precisely. The woman rushes to check on the prince, asking if he's alright. Then, she turns to MC, furious, accusing him of having the audacity to kick the prince to save the two maids. MC casually responds, "I only have 2 arms, and my instincts told me to save these beautiful women," adding, "Don't worry, your highness seems unharmed." The woman tries to continue the argument, but the prince cuts her off, saying MC was charming for saving the beauties in distress. The situation is dire, and they need to find a way to escape. The woman shouts at the assassins, claiming she knows exactly who they are, even though they're hiding behind disguises. Their main objective is to assassinate the prince. She then asks, "Isn't that right, Gunfoam? Tell me if you enjoyed this story. And in the name of the god Li Yunxiao, I ask you to like the video in the next 10 seconds, or you'll be the next target."